Happy Friday, everybody. Welcome to the Sean O'Connell Show once again. Glad to have you with us. Hoping we can send you into your weekend with some information, some entertainment. Bill Riley's going to join us in half an hour on the show. Paul Pugmire at 12:30 for another look and a leaderboard update from the PGA Championship. Tony Jones, insider who covers the Nuggets, the Jazz, the NBA, friend of the program, talking about this playoff picture and a Game 7 forced in that Nuggets-Oklahoma City Thunder series, which I think all of us were hoping for as fans of the sport, right? As NBA playoff fans. These second-round series have been a little bit underwhelming in terms of their competitiveness. And we need this series, and we need Knicks Celtics. James is decked out in his your one and only New York Knicks jersey. Is that correct?
Yes, my one and only New York Knicks jersey is number 17, Jeremy Lin.
All right, Linsanity.
So the story behind this one is my brother was on his mission during Linsanity, just finished his mission, I think, and watched the Netflix documentary.
Okay.
Because he'd heard about it, because you still hear about things.
Where was he on his mission?
Guatemala.
Okay. Wow.
Yeah.
Linsanity made it all the way to Guatemala?
Well, probably in, letters home. I was also on my mission. I was he's a little bit older than me, so I was a little bit further. He was a little bit further ahead of me. So I don't remember hearing about it at all, but he heard about it somehow, got home. Netflix came out with that documentary about a year, 2013, 2014, somewhere in there. And he watched it, bought the jersey, and then a couple years later was like, "Do you want it?"
What a time to be alive.
So I'm sad that I missed it actually live, but I've seen the highlights, watched the documentary. What a time in the NBA. What a time for the New York Knicks. And this time, this is maybe the first time they can top that, OC. If they can win tonight and make it to their first conference finals since, 99? I think is the last time they went to the conference finals. Also the last time they went to the finals. So it's a long time coming for the Knicks.
I can't believe Linsanity was 13 years ago.
Wasn't it? Isn't that nuts?
Man, I am old and I don't like it. In any case, lots to talk about on the show.
What was it, 2 straight weeks of 30 points, couple of triple doubles in there?
Honestly,
it was such a flash in the pan great moment for the league.
Anyone who knows the specifics, remembers the specifics of Linsanity, is on a different level of NBA fandom, I think, for me. Linsanity was by itself a cultural moment, right? That little snapshot. It's kind of like Tiger King. That's kind. It was the sports equivalent of Tiger King, where everybody was just like, "Whoa!" and everyone was showing up and talking about it at work because, of course, in 2012 you're actually going to work. And then, of course, Tiger King was a little bit different. The conversation was happening mostly on social media.
Or you're texting people about it.
Texting people, or
because you're not spending much time around people.
You were just tweeting into the void. Or, let's be honest, in Utah, it was 50-50. People were having Tiger King watch parties probably.
That's a good point. It was the pandemic restrictions were not near as strict here. Although it wasn't Texas, or you explained –
Iowa,
you described Iowa. It wasn't anything like that either. We were kind of right in the middle.
The best part about all of that was that, we're all one country. It showed the more than anything, really, it showed the difference of being like a republic. 50 different states, 50 different ideas of how you should do it. And actually 350 million different ideas about how you should do it during COVID. But yeah, what a time. Linsanity. James memorializing that with his Knicks jersey.
So just sorry not to get too far afield talking Linsanity on a Friday.
It's fine. It's a Friday.
But I just looked up the game log here. It was maybe about a month from early February to about mid-March. It was about 2 weeks that it was at its height, though. He had basically every game from February 3rd or February 4th to February 22nd was a 20-point game for him. And like a bunch of 10-plus assist games in there. He had like a couple of game winners in there. I think the only reason, as great of a performance as that was, and he came out of nowhere, right? He was a G League guy at the start of the year. D League at that point is what they were calling it. That helps. That kind of come from nowhere story. But like, if he's not a Knick, that doesn't become the sensation that it was. Like playing in New York was why that was a big deal. But it's still pretty cool.
His first contract, 2018. No, that's not right. No, that's not right.
He signed one
backwards.
That offseason.
That's backwards. Yeah. His first contract in the NBA was a 2-year rookie deal with Golden State.
Yeah.
And he was making $618,000, which is the minimum at the time. That, by the way, is a very, very healthy minimum salary. NBA, just being on a roster is pretty impressive, right? And then watching
from the Bay Area, by the way, he went to high school in Palo Alto, but went to high school at Stanford, basically. So,
and then he went to Harvard for college.
Yeah. So to start his career with the Warriors, even though that's not where he gained any traction at all, that they cover that in the doc. How cool that is for was for him.
You know what I actually really would love is I would like to have a Where Are They Now with Jeremy Lin, but also with like Jeremy Lin's classmates, because he made like $65 million in his NBA career, which of course is wild success.
Yes.
Right? But going to private schools where he was from and then going to Harvard for college, I would like to see like if he's even in the top 10 amongst his peers in terms of their career earnings. You know what I mean?
We should try to find a list of
like the tech bros
who we went to high school
with.
Yeah.
Because
and then who we went to college with.
Like,
yeah.
There's still a strong chance that Jeremy Lin shows up at the 20-year high school reunion and he's like number 15 in terms of wealthiest guys showing up to that reunion, even though he made, $65 million was his NBA money, then whatever else endorsement.
Yeah, he certainly got a bunch of endorsements because of how much of a phenomenon that was.
Wow. Anyway, that's not where we're going to take the show today. That's not the main point of today's show. The NBA playoffs continue to please. Like I said, Thunder Nuggets goes to Game 7. That'll be Sunday at 1:30 p.m. on ABC. Right now, Oklahoma City, a 7.5-point favorite to close it out and advance to the Western Conference Final against the Minnesota Timberwolves, the Fighting Rudy Goberts of Minneapolis.
They almost came back and beat the Nuggets last night. I thought after that third steal in a row that they got, even with Jalen Williams totally smoking the layup on one of them, he had just a terrible game.
To quote my fourth grade teacher, Mr. Bogenschutz, almost only counts in hand grenades and horseshoes.
One of my favorite sayings as well.
Okay.
Was that Mr. Bogenschutz that came up with that one?
I don't know if he came up with it.
It went all the way down to St. George.
Bogenschutz would use
Internet.
A lot. All right.
All name team, by the way. Bogenschutz.
Yeah, there was also a Mrs. Bogenschutz at Willow Canyon Elementary.
They were married? Okay.
They were married. Mr. and Mrs. Bogenschutz. And, just phenomenal.
That's amazing.
He also, the intercom when they would call down to class, they do a little boom, and then the voice of God would speak through the corner of the room. They would say, Mr. Bogenschutz, and he would say, "You are in touch with reality." That would be his response to that for some reason.
Oh my gosh!
And all of us would just giggle.
What a weird guy!
What a weird guy!
But funny, weird.
But a couple of catchphrases, that have stuck with me for 30 years.
I had a chemistry teacher that had some. He was a quirky guy, and Mr. Burr. Shout out to Mr. Burr.
Yeah.
Don't know if he's any kind of a sports fan, so I don't know if he's listening. But he would say "Hokey smokes."
Okay, I like it. I like it.
And then he would say, he was a stickler about we'd miss points if we didn't put the unit on the number, right? Milliliters, 4 milliliters, not just 4. The answer isn't 4; it's 4 milliliters.
It's 4 milliliters,
right? So his
a bit of a stickler, but
his
all right.
line with that was numbers without units are pig fodder.
What?
Yes. Oh man.
Who was that? What was his name?
That's Mr. Burr.
Mr. Burr, shout out to you.
Hokey smokes, what a guy.
I will say this. Teachers are the greatest, or they're the worst. Like, there's very little middle ground, you know what I mean? If you are the kind of teacher out there, and I hope you get a chance to listen to this show on the app, at ESPN700sports.com, the on-demand section.
Turn on your smart speaker while you're teaching class.
Do that.
Tell Alexa to play ESPN 700.
Whoever the new Mr. Bogenschutz is, just randomly play ESPN 700, and Alexa just, boom. Then it's my voice coming through to your class. All right? But if you are
Mr.
that
Bogenschutz,
do me a favor.
You are in touch with reality.
You're in touch with reality.
Should we try that through the smart speaker?
Here's the thing. If you're a teacher right now, or you're thinking about being a teacher, come up with a couple of catchphrases, and kids will remember you until they're old people. All right?
Absolutely.
Mrs. Wadium, raise your hand out there if you're driving in your car right now. If you're between the ages of 35 and probably 55 in Utah, you had a substitute teacher at some point, at least if you were in the Valley, Granite and Jordan school districts, Mrs. Wadium. She would write her name on the board. Ugh, I still hate the sound of chalk on a chalkboard, by the way.
Wow, you're so old. You had chalkboards.
Yeah, exactly. No dry erase. No dry erase when I was a kid.
When I say they write, the sub writes the name on the dry erase board, the young people younger than me go, "Oh, so you're so old you didn't have smart boards."
Oh, yeah. Well, I don't even know what that is. She would write her name up there. Mrs. Wadium. If you could say stadium and you can say radium, you can say my name, Mrs. Wadium. All right? I don't know a person within 10 years above me and like 5 years below me that did not have Mrs. Wadium as a substitute teacher. If you're a teacher out there in the world, if you're a coach, if you're a driver's ed instructor, whatever, come up with a couple of catchphrases and you will never be forgotten.
Absolutely.
And if you are never forgotten, you never die.
Absolutely. Immortality for the teachers, catchphrases.
Boom. Immortality.
One more. I had my favorite seminary teacher. His name was Brother Troyer. Shout out to Brother Troyer. He is a sports fan, so I don't know. I think he still lives in St. George, so he might be tuning in if he likes to tune into Salt Lake City radio. He would act like a maniac in front of the seminary building on Thursdays.
Yeah.
He was the one that would greet all the kids, and he'd act like a maniac to be funny and get people to laugh, right?
I like it.
And he would, on Thursdays, he would say, it's Friday Eve.
In the morning?
All day. All day. It's Friday Eve. Come on.
All right.
It's Friday. And then Wednesdays would be, it's Friday Eve. So shout out to Brother Troyer.
We're going to.
It's Friday now.
If you call
Let's go.
877-353-0700 on the Sean O'Connell Show. If you call in, when we bring you on the air, I'll say you are in touch with reality as a shout out to.
And then you got to give us one of your favorite.
Yeah.
One of the memorable catchphrases by one of your teachers.
Text them to us right now, 877-353-0700. The catchphrases, the little quirks that made you remember teachers long after they taught you. By the way, don't remember anything that Mr. Bogenschutz actually taught me. Just remember those couple of things.
You are in touch with reality.
And Mrs. Wadium, she was a substitute teacher, so pretty sure she never taught anybody anything. Right? It's wheel
Except
the television.
how to say your name.
It's
her name.
Wheel the big old box television up to the middle of the room and plug in Voyage of the Mimi or something.
She sounds like she had to have been a science teacher. With the radium sounds like an element.
Well, and if you use an element, radium, as one of the... Of course you could say radium. Every kid sitting there just like, what the hell is radium? Anyway, Mr. Weissman, my 8th grade science teacher, had us believing that in Orange, he would tell us these stories that in hindsight were very clearly made up about how
he was so convincing, though.
About how he worked like in top secret government, like Department of Defense projects.
I had a sub like that.
But he was a full-time teacher, and he's just like, yeah, I once worked on a machine that could release the potential energy of anything. So this orange, and he's holding up an orange from his lunchbox, this orange could blow up the whole world. And we're just like, what? And of course, when you're a kid,
you just ate it up.
When you're 13, you're not just like raising your hand, just like, not true. If you were working on top secret government projects, you would not then become an 8th grade science teacher.
And then tell everyone you worked on those projects.
Oh, my gosh. 877-353-0700. I love hearing about crazy teachers.
Shout out to all the teachers.
Shout out to all
doing
the great
God's
teachers.
work. Seriously.
And you know what? A good transition here. The ultimate teacher, the most famous teacher, the alpha of all teachers right now in the state of Utah, the guy at the top of the teacher mountain, you could make an argument is Kyle Whittingham. All right? Teaching the game, the most powerful, most influential public office, I think, in the state, really, is Kyle Whittingham, the head coach. We are not quite.
Governor's office calling in with an early grievance.
Okay. Go ahead and offer your grievance. By the way, airing of grievances coming up in 2 hours and 13 minutes.
Sorry, Governor, you're like 2 hours early, so if you'll call back.
But seriously, James, if it's the governor wants something to happen or Kyle Whittingham wants something to happen, who's more likely to get it done? I mean, it's a coin flip.
You might have a point there.
It's a coin flip. Now, ESPN does this. It's a list season as we're firmly in the off season. ESPN does this thing where they rank the top college coaches, and other outlets are going to do this. They're going to go all 132 Division I coaches, or they'll do all 60-plus Power 4 coaches. We're starting with the top 10 best coaches in college football right now, and normally I would tuck this into the hot lunch or something, but since we got off on our teacher tangent, number 1, Kirby Smart. Just say agree or disagree when I give you number 1, Kirby Smart.
Agree.
Number 2, Ryan Day.
Agree.
Number 3, Dabo Swinney.
I suppose I agree. And I should say I suppose I agree with Ryan Day, too. Even though he got the Buckeyes the national championship, an incredible run through the playoff, he still has left a lot to be desired, other than that run in big games. So I say I guess I agree because he just won the national championship.
This was voted on by all the ESPN college football writers, by the way. Number 4, Marcus Freeman of Notre Dame.
Okay. I'm not sure I agree with that one.
By the way,
feels a little high for Marcus Freeman.
Longevity here between like some of these guys, right? So it has listed also their career records. Kirby Smart is 105-19, all at Georgia. Gosh. He got 11 of the 12 first-place votes from the 12 different writers. Ryan Day is 70-10.
Yeah, he's
all at Ohio State.
He's got an incredible record. Don't get me wrong, and that's not what lots of people, including I believe Zachariah last year during college football season. Shout out to Zachariah, we miss you, buddy. We're thinking it's crazy that Ohio State fans were like, if he doesn't win the national championship, he ought to be fired. And they'd look at that record and be like, that's crazy. But it's like, look at his record in the playoff and against teams ranked in the top 5. It's not great. Like
he's 1-4.
He's beat up on the teams he's supposed to beat up on until this playoff run. He went undefeated against them.
He's 1-4 against Michigan.
Yeah, and that's a big part of it too. Yeah, but 76-10 is an incredible record.
But just so we're remembering correctly, Ryan Day is coming into this season in arbitrary and insignificant rankings as the number 2 coach in all of college football, and he was a non-expanded college football playoff format away from being fired last year.
Yes, he probably would have been fired because they don't make the playoff.
If 2025 was the year that we go to 12 teams instead of 2024, Ryan Day is the offensive coordinator for Iowa.
He might. That seriously might be the case.
That's wild. And now he's coming off a national championship, and he's thought of as the number 2 coach in the game. Dabo, number 3. His record, 180 wins, 47 losses.
See a lot more losses than those top two.
Marcus Freeman, 33-10, and obviously I bring that up because just the longevity aspect here, it's not there. And, 33-10, okay? He's got 10 losses.
Yeah, that's a questionable – that high. I question putting him that high, even though he had an incredible season last year all the way to the national championship game.
Ryan Day has more than double the wins and the same number of losses. And Ryan Day, you're still wondering, you would have been fired.
Yeah.
Steve Sarkisian, 84-52. He's 38-17 at Texas.
That guy's 5? I disagree with that. I vehemently disagree with that.
All respect to Steve Sarkisian's connections to the state of Utah here, but he's an outlier in terms of the results.
Yes. Absolutely. The top 3, Dabo hasn't been that great in the last few years, but Clemson did make the playoff last year after a few-year drought, and he's won multiple national championships. So you kind of have to put him 3, even if you're I'm not sure if he's as good a coach as people say he is. You kind of have to put him at 3. Freeman and Sarkisian, especially Sark, top 5, really?
Sark is 38-17 at Texas. Not 38-17 at Louisiana Lafayette. He's not 38-17 at even a place like, Oklahoma State. He's 38-17 at a place with the number 1 resources or the number 2 resources in all of college football. He's 38-17 there.
22 and 3 the last 2 years, I suppose. Something like that. But yeah.
Dan Lanning is number 6, 35-6, all at Oregon.
I might agree with that.
See, Dan Lanning is an interesting one because if we were 5 years further into his head coaching career, I think this is above debate. I think that absolutely, unequivocally, yes. But Dan Lanning, we watched him go through the growing pains of being a head coach for the first time and taking some insane risks with 4th down calls inside your own territory, onside kicks in situations where you might not have needed them that came back to bite him. Now, maybe that's a reason why these writers put him in the top 10 because they like the gunslinger, fly by the seat of your pants mentality. But again, he's at Oregon, and he's got some of the best players in the world consistently committing to play for him. Kalen DeBoer, number 7. I really loved Kalen DeBoer. He's 46-13 overall as a head coach. He's 9-4 at Alabama. They didn't even incorporate his NAIA experience. He was 67-3 at Sioux Falls.
What's Dan Lanning's record?
Dan Lanning is 35-6.
See, I was going to say, even with all of those maybe costing his team wins here and there, costing his team potentially a chance at a college football playoff berth a couple years ago when Washington got to the national championship game. Oregon was right there all year long, right alongside them with these questionable gunslinger type 4th down decisions. Even if you're going to say you'd be really critical of that, he's only got 6 losses in 3 years now.
Yes.
That's a incredible record. Incredible start to a coaching career.
And the 35 wins for Oregon in that time span rank 4th overall behind Georgia, Michigan, and Ohio State.
Yeah, see, I think I would put him ahead of Sark. I would probably put him ahead of Marcus Freeman.
I would co-sign on both of those moves if you were in charge. But you're just a producer today. Yeah. You're not in charge right now.
You're right. You're
right. Kalen DeBoer. See, Kalen DeBoer.
I co-sign on your thoughts there.
Kalen DeBoer, I think, when it's all said and done, is going to end up higher than this.
I think so, too.
I think, what he did at every level has been an impressive thing. At Alabama, there were some growing pains. Being the guy to follow the guy, always difficult, and he did an okay job of it. I think it gets better quickly. James Franklin comes in at number 8. I take umbrage. I'm not the biggest James Franklin guy out there. Raise your hand and tell me the biggest win, the most significant, meaningful, impactful win for James Franklin. Go ahead.
Ohio State in 2016.
So you're going back 10 years for his most impressive win.
That the only year they've won the Big Ten championship in James Franklin's tenure, they were able to get to the championship game because they beat Ohio State at home in an upset win, and they had to win on a game-winning field goal too. So like, yeah, he's Ryan Day-ish pre-college football playoff run. Like, but Ryan Day, you felt even better about because he'd been doing it for a shorter amount of time and getting about the same results.
By the way, the voting for Franklin, 5 people left him off the ballot completely.
Oh.
And the highest he was ranked was number 5. That brings us to number 9, Kyle Whittingham of Utah. 167 and 86. All of those at Utah. 20 seasons at the helm. And the voting was very similar for Kyle Whittingham, according to the report. 2 voters had him as high as number 5. 6 left Kyle Whittingham out of the top 10.
You see, I think I agree with somewhere between 7 and 10 for Witt. I think you could argue putting him ahead, moving him up a couple of spots, but I don't think he's outside the top 10, but I don't think he's that high in the top 10 either. I think he's 7, 8, or 9. So 9 feels good to me.
Matt Campbell rounds out the top 10.
That's an interesting one.
Matt Campbell at Iowa State, 99 and 66, 64 and 52 at Iowa State. 64 and 52 at Iowa State, and he's regarded as the number 10 coach in the country. I don't
think I agree with that one. But I don't know. I can't right now on the spot. I'm not able to think of who's obviously ahead of him, but I feel like there's a handful of guys that are probably ahead of him.
Campbell is given a lot of credit, and again, he's
been good. He's absolutely been a good coach.
Iowa State was a nothing burger in football for a very long time, and Matt Campbell has made them into something. Now, what that something is up for debate, and honestly, you could say the same thing from a national perspective, right? Zoom out and do the national look at the University of Utah, and you're talking about something similar. They're competing for conference championships. They were supposed to win the conference last year. Injuries took them out of that conversation. But Kyle Whittingham comes in at number 9, a highly respected head coach who, quite frankly, is the only guy on this list whose team is not expected to win a national championship. I guess he and Matt Campbell. 9 and 10 are the only coaches on this list where the fan base and the booster base, more importantly, does not have them on the hot seat if they don't win national championships. Number 9, that's where your head coach is, Utah fans. 877-353-0700. Where do you put Kyle Whittingham? Top 10. You can also tweet at me at RealOC Sports. ESPN writers have him at number 9 amongst all head coaches in the land. The voice of the Utes, Bill Riley, is going to join us next. We'll get his thoughts on this placement for Kyle Whittingham and all things Utah. Just getting started on a Friday. It's Utah's number 1 sports talk. Sean O'Connell Show brought to you today and every day by our friends at Les Schwab Tires. Stop by Les Schwab, many locations up and down the Wasatch Front. Tell them OC sent you. The tires, the wheels, the accessories, they've got whatever you need for whatever you drive. ESPN 700, 92.1 FM.
have gotten a piece of it. Here's Nemesnikov, scores! Vlad Nemesnikov, another power play goal. And Winnipeg with a 3-0 lead in the third.
Winnipeg Jets got the power play goal, 4-0 win over the Dallas Stars. Game 5 of the second round series. That sound courtesy of TNT Sports. Game 6 tomorrow night in Dallas. We have another Game 6, Maple Leafs and the defending Stanley Cup champions, Florida Panthers, tonight at 6. We are your home of the Stanley Cup playoffs here on Utah's #1 sports talk, ESPN 700, 92.1 FM. Joining me now, the voice of the Utes, Bill Riley on a Friday. Bill, welcome to the show. How are you?
Sean, I'm great. Big shout out to our friends Handy and Handy, who are now proudly sponsoring my appearance with you and my appearance with Spence. Love Preston and Garrett, so thank you to Handy and Handy, your personal injury attorneys.
Big firm experience, small firm attention over at Handy and Handy.
Look at you.
You got to love it. We just played a little hockey highlight. Bill, you're really excellent on football, on basketball. You can handle baseball, which is a totally different rhythm, and there's a lot more storytelling and stuff like that. If somebody called you up and was just like, hey, Bill, we need you to do hockey, could you do it? Could you pull it off?
Yeah, I think I could. I'm not saying I could pull it off at the level of these guys that have been doing it for a long time, but I've followed the sport for a long time. I've been doing play-by-play. Hockey is a sport I think that would be right in my wheelhouse because I get pretty excited during my calls. I'm pretty upbeat, good energy. So I think I could. It would take a minute just because of the pacing and not having done it before because, you know, every play-by-play, as you learned with basketball, has a different rhythm and feel to it. So it would probably take me a minute, but I would love the opportunity if somebody ever – got under the weather down with the Utah Hockey Club and couldn't go for the day. If they called me up and said, hey, could you pinch hit tonight? I would love the opportunity. I'm
watching more hockey now than I have since I moved to Utah from Minnesota when I was like 9 years old because, for obvious reasons, we're a lot more interested in it. And now that I do play-by-play myself in other sports, I'm like, man, it really is a unique sport to call. And the guys who are excellent at it, and of course on the Stanley Cup playoffs, you're getting the absolute best of the best of the best. It's really fantastic. It's an art form. So I'd pay to listen to Bill Riley call a game or two. That'd be a fun little experiment. You'd have to trade in your Polynesian pronunciations for like the Russian and Eastern European.
Well, I did soccer for 18 years, Sean, in MLS. There were lots of Eastern European
That's fair.
Players that I had to deal with when doing Major League Soccer. By the way, shout out to Mike Folta and really all the broadcasters. I thought the times I was able to listen and watch to both radio and TV, I thought the broadcast teams this year for the Utah Hockey Club did an outstanding job. So shout out to that crew.
All right, we were just talking about this. ESPN, we're getting into list season, which I love, and Kyle Whittingham comes in at number 9. They asked all the writers for ESPN, all the college football insiders, hey, give me your top 10 college football coaches in the land, and he comes in at number 9. He's right behind James Franklin, right in front of Matt Campbell, and the other guys on that list are the usual suspects. You could probably rattle them off without me naming it. But Kyle Whittingham, even coming off of the worst season of his career, is still that respected among those in the know. What does it mean? What do you think?
No, I think that's about right. I'm trying to remember. Well, Franklin got to the playoff this year. So, yeah, Kyle's really the only one on the list in that top 9 that hasn't been to the college football playoff. I mean, it's great respect. I mean, depending on what metrics you want to use, you could make a case that Kyle could be higher on that list because of what he's done in his career. The two that I've just I scratched my head a little bit at are Sarkisian and Freeman. That feels a lot like prisoner of the moment stuff to me. I mean, Marcus Freeman has all the markings of a great college football coach. 33-10 at Notre Dame. But number 4 on the list, is that where we're going with this? Number 4 for Marcus Freeman? I think longevity does have to play a role. And let's not forget, Sark is at Texas.
Yes.
He's had one really good year at Texas. He was known as 7-6 Sark when he was at Washington. He was fired at USC for not getting it done. Again, maybe he's in the place now, but he's in a place where it's a lot easier to succeed because you've got all the resources. Again, great coach, and same thing with Marcus Freeman. I don't have any problem. Like Kalen DeBoer, people might say, Kalen DeBoer has had everywhere he's gone, he's won. He won a bunch of national championships at the NAIA level. I think he lost 3 games. He took Washington to the playoff. Yeah, they had a little bit of a down year last year at Alabama, but if 9-4 is your mark as a down year, I think I'm kind of okay with that because he did go to the playoffs and he won some national championships. I would just say if I was quibbling at all with ESPN's list, it might be the placement of Freeman and Sarkisian where they're at.
Well, I recused myself from criticizing anything Notre Dame related for obvious reasons. James felt the same. The Sark thing, we're on the exact same page. Like, if we're going to be that prisoner of the moment also, like, I mean, hey, Kenny Dillingham took a team that nobody expected to the playoff.
Correct.
Let's go.
They were picked last in the preseason Big 12 poll last year. I mean, that's where I think ASU, that's right. ASU was picked 16th, right?
That's right. You're correct. Absolutely.
Yeah. So, I mean, if we're going to be prisoner of the moment there, Kenny Dillingham should probably be a little bit higher, but I understand why he's not because it was his second year and things like that. Anyway, these are lists. They're fun off-season discussions. To our point here, I think Kyle Whittingham being in the top 10, no matter where you want to place him, depending on the metrics you look at, I think is absolutely correct. He's got an undefeated season on his resume. He transitioned from Group of 5 to Power 5. He won back-to-back Pac-12 championships. Last year being quote-unquote down year, there's one reason and one reason only. It was the injury to Rising and subpar quarterback play. So I think Kyle is accurately placed, depending on whatever your metric might happen to be.
In the all others receiving votes category, Kenny Dillingham got a little bit of love. Deion Sanders got a little bit of love. Chris Kleiman from Kansas State, since we're staying on the Big 12 front. Lance Leipold from your alma mater, Kansas. Interestingly enough for me, and I know that I'm not unbiased because he was at one time my position coach, and I absolutely love the guy. But, again, the conversation seems to be geared towards that we are prisoner of the moment at least a little bit, even these writers are. No Kalani Sitake, even in the all others receiving votes, despite what he's been able to accomplish at BYU.
Yeah, a little surprising. I think if he has another good year this year like he did last year, I think he gets more votes. The Kleiman thing is interesting to me because he won a bunch of national championships at the one – I mean, if we're going to give Kalen DeBoer NAIA credit, Kleiman did it at a higher level. I think he won 4 maybe national championships at North Dakota State. Maybe he should be in that top 10. Maybe you move Matt Campbell down a little bit. I don't know. I think let's not. What this tells me is the Big 12's got a lot of really good coaches. Campbell and Kyle Whittingham are in that top 10 right now, and then you got guys like Chris Kleiman, who is a winner, and Kansas State's been really good since he took over. And then you've got, as you mentioned, Leipold and Kenny Dillingham, who's on that list. Deion Sanders will be interesting to watch this year, and even Kalani Sitake. So they may not be big at the top, but I think the overall quality of coaches in the Big 12 is really good.
How good of a coach do you think Joey McGuire is? Because they added a bunch of talent in the transfer portal. They spent a lot of money this offseason. He's got a roster that should be competing for a Big 12 championship at Texas Tech. But, we'll have to wait and see. So I ask you how good of a coach you think he is in the spirit of, is he going to be able to deploy those new resources to some success, and should we be worried about the Red Raiders?
I don't know. I mean, to be fair, Sean, they've spent a lot of money the last couple of years. They've got a lot of money in Lubbock. They gave a softball player $1 million. One player. She was the top pitcher in the country at Stanford. They gave this gal $1 million to come pitch at Texas Tech. They've spent a ton in basketball, and they're very competitive. So it's not as if they just started spending this off season. I think this is going to be an interesting year for Texas Tech because of just of what you said, because when you spend that kind of money, I think you expect a return on your investment. I actually thought they were going to be a little bit better last year than they were. So I didn't follow it real super close because they weren't on Utah's schedule last year. But I think with them coming to Salt Lake City this year, I'm really interested to see Texas Tech. If I'm not mistaken, I think Joey McGuire, wasn't he a highly touted high school coach who got promoted to the D1 level? Is that right? Maybe I'm missing on that.
That sounds right. I'll look it up while we're talking, but I think you're right on that.
Yeah, I think he was a really successful Texas high school.
Yeah, Crowley High School. No, that's not
football coach. Is that right?
He was
Crowley High School, Texas Arlington, maybe at Texas Arlington.
He went on to coach at Cedar Hill High School. And then you're right. 2003 to 2016 was a high school coach in Cedar Hill. Then he went to Baylor, and
I think he won like 4 state titles or something like that. Then became a position coach, I think, or a coordinator at Baylor for a couple of years. I think I've got that right.
Yeah, you do. That's exactly what the path was. Cedar Hill High School to Baylor, now to Texas Tech.
So, yeah, I think, again, in this day and age, when schools spend a ton, I think Kyle Whittingham's talked about this too. The day and age of, well, we're going to build this thing and develop them for 3 or 4 years. And with the portal and money being spent in from collectives and things like that now, I think it expedites the time frame that people. And it's not just at that, but places like Texas Tech where they really spend and football's important. I don't think you get 4 or 5 years anymore. I think it's 2 or 3 years to really show what you can do. And again, he hasn't been bad. I mean, he's, I think, 23-16 in a couple of seasons as their head coach. But I think now, going back to what you just said, I think this is one of those years where you're going to say, okay, we've really invested in this thing. Let's see what we can get out of this season.
I also think this is a year we find out how good of a coach Deion Sanders is at the Power 4 level, because he doesn't have he doesn't have his son playing quarterback. He doesn't have a Heisman Trophy winner. At least we don't think he's got another Heisman Trophy winner, two-way player on that roster. What is a good expectation or a reasonable expectation level for Colorado in your mind?
I don't know yet. I want to see how the roster settles out a little bit. I want to do a little bit more digging on that quarterback. Is it Salter? Is that his name? Is it Keaton Salter or something like that? The kid, I think they got him from Liberty, if that sounds right. I want to do a little bit more digging. He's got a lot of skill guys. There's no doubt about that, and he still seems to be hitting pretty well in the portal as well. So
they've got Julian Lewis. They got a former 4-star Julian Lewis, and they've got Caden Salter, the quarterback from Liberty. Dual threat kind of guy.
Yeah, isn't Lewis? Lewis is a true freshman, though. I'd be surprised if he was the guy this year. I think you probably brought Salter in and is the guy to kind of be your frontline guy to groom Lewis a little bit, and then maybe be Lewis second. I agree with you. It's going to be an interesting year for sure. I don't think the expectation will be as high without his son and Travis Hunter and some of the other players. They lost 2 or 3 of those really good wide receivers, the Horn kid, some of the others that were over, the Jonte Wester. So how do you replenish? How do you do it? And, without having your son who knew the system and you had coached since high school and Jackson State. But I don't think that I'd be surprised if they fell out the map, Sean. Maybe they take a little bit of a step back if they do, but I don't think it's going to be some sort of precipitous fall down the standings.
Who gets more headlines? Who do we talk about more, whether we like to or not? Deion Sanders in Colorado or North Carolina and Bill Belichick?
Well, I think it depends, one, on how they do. I think Belichick's going to garner more attention this year because it's his first year. I mean, this is year 3 for Deion coming up. So there's a little bit of a ramp and a track record here. I think the initial stuff is going to be the attention on Belichick and what they're able to do. It feels like the girlfriend story's kind of been pushed to the side a little bit now. I think they've done that over the last couple of weeks since that disastrous CBS interview. So I think it's going to be more about football, but people are going to be anxious to see, can Bill coach? Does his style work in college? Does the staff that he brought on board, how are they? I haven't even really looked at their roster. What are the ACC is not great, but what are the expectations for Carolina? I don't think they should be very high in year 1. I know they've gotten some portal hits, but they haven't hit it super big with transfers. They've gotten some good ones. So I think people are going to keep an eye on that. But if they're not very good, he's not like Deion. He's not going to be out, doing what Deion did. Remember, they won those first 3 games at Colorado, and then they kind of fell off the map toward the end of the year. But people were still enamored because Deion likes the attention. But Belichick, I think, begins to kind of go back into his coaching cave a little bit, and he's not quite as out in front. So I think it's going to be Carolina out of the gates, but I think the attention will depend on how successful they are.
Before I let you go, you're a baseball fan. Pete Rose is now eligible for the Pro Baseball Hall of Fame. Does he get in?
Good question. I think he should, because I think I view Hall of Fames as museums, and put on his plaque whatever you want to put on his plaque, but to hold out the guy whose memorabilia is already in there. Come on, half of what he did, his bats, his jerseys, his helmets, all that stuff is there. He's the hit king. He's one of the most important baseball players in the history of the game. You put him in. Now, how you want to recognize him once he's in there, that's up to you. But to keep he and other great baseball players out of a museum that's supposed to be telling the story of baseball, tell the story any way you want to. Highlight his great accolades, but also tell the story of what he did, after baseball, betting on the game as a manager, whatever that might happen to be. But for all these years to hold him out, I know some people don't view it that way, but I view Hall of Fames as museums that tell the history of the sport and story, the good, the bad, and the ugly. So I hope he gets in. It's a shame it's going to be posthumously. I hope Shoeless Joe Jackson gets to go in as well, because he was one of the great baseball players of the early days of baseball. But if he indeed bet on baseball and helped fix the World Series, tell that story too. But I do hope Pete goes in. I don't know. I think he's got a better chance with it being the Veterans Committee and the fact that he is no longer with us, not there. I think it's easier to put somebody in posthumously. So, yeah, I do think he eventually gets there. Whether that's next year, the year after, I'm not sure. What about you?
Yeah, I think he's going to get in. I like your characterization of, like, if it's a museum, make it a museum and go ahead and tell that story however you want. That becomes a slippery slope, because then, the drug cheats and the performance-enhancing drug cheats and all those guys, they got to go in too with that same sort of asterisk, to overuse a term. But, yeah, I think he ends up getting in.
Well, I mean, you can again. You're voting on these people individually. They're not voted in as a block. Barry Bonds, was he a drug cheat? It sure looks that way. But Barry Bonds would have been a first ballot all-time great had he never taken anything that he took from Balco. I mean, he did it because it was an ego thing, and he saw McGuire and Sosa and those guys getting all the attention. But if you just took his career with the Pittsburgh Pirates, the first 10 years of his career, he's in there.
You're right.
So I think it's up to, same thing with Roger Clemens. He took it late in his career to continue to pitch, but Roger Clemens had a Hall of Fame career on basically his Red Sox career alone, much less what he did with the Blue Jays and, the Yankees and all those other places. So I think you judge them on individual bases, if that's a word, and go from there. But I think not all, even to the drug cheats. I don't even know that those guys were all, I don't know that you can group them all together, because I think their careers were in different places. I know there's no definitive evidence as to what was the day that they took it for the first time, but I think we have a pretty good idea when you look at their bodies and their careers, when they were 42 years old and still knocking 45 balls out of the park, I think you have a pretty good idea. But that's just how I feel about it.
Yeah, just find the year that their hat size increased and then cut it off there. You know what I mean? That's because the steroids make your skull grow. Anyway, we got to let you go, Bill. You're the man. HandyLawUtah.com is how you get a hold of Handy and Handy. And, I know you trust them. They've helped us out for years on ESPN 700.
They're great. Preston and Garrett are awesome. They've been great partners of ESPN 700 for so many years. I know them personally. They used to come on my show and talk. I absolutely think that if you need a personal injury attorney, I hope you don't, because that means you've probably been in an accident or something. But if that happens, you need somebody with experience and knows what they're doing. And the Handies, Preston and Garrett, can certainly help you out.
801-264-6677. Call and make an appointment today. Handy and Handy, attorneys at law. Thanks, Bill.
Thanks, Sean. Talk to you soon.
Voice of the Utes, Bill Riley. Big-time baseball fan as well. Glad we got that conversation in with Bill. We'll close out hour number 1. Caleb Williams, is his dad trying to ruin his career? Kind of seems like it. Sean O'Connell Show, ESPN 700, 92.1 FM. Hot Lunch this week brought to you by E3 Energy Cubes. Go to e3energycubes.com. Great meal replacement, actually, the Energy Cube bars. They taste more like baked goods, like something that your grandma would have popped out of the oven than they do like a protein bar. But they've got the same sort of nutrition facts, better even than a lot of the protein bars out there on the market. e3energycubes.com. Real sustained energy from real quality ingredients in your food. Tell them OC sent you. Also, reminder, Matt Rife is coming to the Utah First Credit Union Amphitheater on June 6th. Listen to The Drive with Spence Checketts this week for your chance to win a pair of tickets. ESPN700sports.com for more info and for ticket links.
Their last day to win a pair of tickets to Matt Rife today on The Drive.
Who in the building has the list for those? Who would I have to go?
During the break, I'll let you know. We've got We'll get you some tickets. I'm fairly certain we can get you some tickets.
You can? Whoa! All right.
Usually there's a pair or two extra that they give us when we give away tickets here. By the way, shout out to our guy Cole from Riverton. He's the one that was nervous yesterday about topical trivia. Unfortunately,
Cole.
he was just like 30 seconds to a minute too slow to win those tickets
yesterday. Quick on the draw.
But he did. Texted back and forth a lot with him. You're seeing the conversation as well, OC. He said he's a longtime listener, loves our show, so hopefully he can get some free golf today from us.
Just so you know, Cole, I shamelessly would just give you the prize even if you didn't deserve it because flattery gets you everywhere with me, but James is a man of higher integrity than that. You got to be quick on the draw.
Yeah. Let's go, Cole.
Got to have the texting fingers ready to answer that topical trivia.
Can't guarantee a free golf, Cole, but I did want to give you a shout-out.
By the way, I don't know how we got on the tangent talking about random catchphrases from your teachers when you were young, but we had some people texting some good ones. 4611, Coach Accord, he was also a PE teacher, said, keep running or you have a size 13 shoe up you-know-where. Probably don't see that in school these days. I think you're right. Whoever texts that in.
Oh, Coach Accord.
6303, my history teacher, Mr. Ramey, was a very large man with a low, powerful voice. Whenever one of us started acting up, he'd say, sit down, clown, and it resonated through the hallways. Still one of my favorite teachers. Who didn't have a woodshop teacher in high school named Captain Sawdust, missing a finger, of course.
That texter also said they had a 6th grade substitute teacher. Guess what his name was, OC?
What was it?
Chuck Farley.
Come on.
I don't know if he's telling the truth there. Come on. That's too good to be true.
One of the shop teachers at my middle school, shout out all my fellow Eastmont Patriots, by the way. He was in a wheelchair because of polio.
Oh.
Which is like, what?
Yeah, I had a neighbor, probably around the same time, 90s, early 2000s, who had polio. So old enough that they did not get the vaccine.
And let me tell you something. He was dead serious about shop safety. Constantly showing you the cautionary tale type things. You know how they would have those instructional videos of like, this is what happens if you don't wear your eye protection. And it's just like some eyeball with like a nail in it. Yeah. And he's like, it's so gruesome. Stop showing it to us. He was not shy about revealing the consequences of lack of safety. Yeah. At the table saw would be going, he'd come by with a stick. If you weren't paying attention, just, oh, what if that was your finger? You're like, oh my gosh. Like.
You're just minding your own business. Here comes.
Yeah, it's just you got to be a unique personality to be teaching
Absolutely.
Middle school and high school kids. Teachers out there, we love you. All right, it's Teacher Appreciation Day every day on the Sean O'Connell Show.
Do we have Caleb Williams' Dad Appreciation Day today?
So you've seen the headlines, right? I heard Scott Mitchell talking about it on his show. We didn't have time to get to it yesterday or the day before, but Caleb Williams, I know that the relationship for people in Salt Lake City and in Utah with Caleb Williams is a contentious one, right? I actually love Caleb Williams because he was a perfect example of exactly why it doesn't matter what your recruiting ranking is. It doesn't matter about your individual accolades. Like, he's a Heisman Trophy winner. The dude was an absolutely incredible individual talent. And
a sensation, too. Like, we talked about Jeremy Lin being a sensation, like, and the way Patrick Mahomes and Steph Curry are great, all-time great players who are also just phenomenons because of the way they play. Caleb Williams was that way at USC.
So there's this book coming out by Seth Wickersham that is apparently, people have seen the excerpts from this thing, that details how Caleb Williams and his dad were trying desperately to keep Caleb out of Chicago and to not let him go to the Bears for obvious reasons. The Bears do not have a great track record with developing successful quarterbacks, and you could go look that stuff up yourself. That's easy to find. I just don't understand, right? If you end up not going to the Bears, by all means, sit down with Seth Wickersham and tell him the story of how you avoided going to the Chicago Bears. Do that, like you're Archie Manning, and you sit down and you say, we wanted Eli to go anywhere but San Diego. This is how it happened. You're Jack Elway, and you're just like, I was not about to see my kid wallow away in Baltimore. We're not letting this happen, and here's how it went. The fact that Caleb Williams and his father were willing to sit down and share all of the ways in which all the lengths they were willing to go to avoid Chicago, even though he ended up in Chicago, is the most tone-deaf and ridiculous and stupid thing you can do.
He's 1 year into his career, too, OC.
He's a year into his career. He's there. They've adopted him. They've learned to love him in Chicago.
This isn't in hindsight. This is he's
under
currently
contract.
there.
He's going to be with the Bears for 4 more seasons.
They just hired an offensive-minded head coach who is supposed to be like the optimism around the Bears offense.
They hired these
very
people
high right now
to help him. They changed the structure of their coaching staff to set him up for success. And now you're going to go in this tell-all book, and you're going to be like, hey, we were willing to sue the league. We were willing to go to the UFL instead. We were trying to skirt the draft process altogether. Now, again, if you don't end up going to Chicago, by all means, I'm reading every word of this book. I want to know exactly how it played out for Eli Manning, for John Elway, for Caleb Williams, and his dad more specifically, to be like, oh, yeah. His dad more specifically, be like, I get my moment in the sun talking to this biographer about what I was willing to do to help my kid. What are you doing, man? Telling this story now hurts your kid. Because all is not forgiven in Chicago. I can promise you that. Chicago fans are not Philadelphia fans. They're not New York fans. But they're not Salt Lake City fans either.
No, they can get pretty fiery in Chicago.
It's a gritty city, man. And now you've got this dad and his son, who's the starting quarterback for your beloved franchise, who's starved for success. And by the way, he was hit and miss. He had good moments. He had bad moments. He actually, I think, played better than most people thought that he should or would in that Bears uniform.
Yeah, I thought he had a really good rookie year.
I think he had a really high-quality rookie year.
All the circumstances.
So with all that, like, people in Chicago are more likely to defend you because you showed up, and considering the coaching situation and maybe you needed a little bit more talent and they helped draft, but it's still young, right? The Bears fans are more like, hey, man, you know what? It's a good start. It's a good foundation. You can be something here.
Get some better coaching and be much better, and they got the better coaching.
Just don't do the thing where you then say, you know what, I just hate this city and this franchise, though.
It's so dumb.
What are you doing? You're trying to ruin your son's career so that you can have a couple of interviews on ESPN so that Shannon Sharp can sit down with you and be like, tell me what you were planning on doing. Well, what I was planning on doing was not what happened at all. Caleb at the end, and this is the only hope for redemption for him, at the end, he was just like, you know what? I had the conversations I needed to with Chicago. I'm going with Chicago. And he called off the Wolves. He told his dad, no, we're not going to do any of this. We're not going to try to stay out of Chicago. But you're going to sit here and tell the whole story? I didn't want to be in Chicago. I was willing to go to extreme lengths to not be in Chicago. And now all those Bears fans who are wearing your jersey are just like, what the hell, man? What? Why? I didn't want to hear that. It's like, have you ever sat down with somebody and been like, you're going to dinner with another couple. And they're like, how'd you guys meet? And you tell the meet cute story. Oh, and it was love at first sight. And then the other, the friend, what about how did you guys meet? And the wife or the husband, we'll make it the husband, is just like, yeah, you know what? We met, and I was really into this other girl at the time. I was dating somebody else, and I was just like not super into her when we first met, and I was just like thinking, I don't know. It's the opposite of love at first sight. You know what I mean? Just like, and eventually we ended up together, and now it's been 10 years. You're just like, oh, that's cute.
And the other thing about the quotes that have been leaked about this Seth Wickersham book, which is not about Caleb Williams, by the way. He's just part of it. His story is just part of it. It's about quarterbacks, the history of quarterbacks, and he's just a small footnote in the book. There's no quote about him saying, "But I like it here now."
No, it's
just hey, I didn't want to be here, and okay.
The only quote,
but now that you're here, how do you feel?
I didn't want to nuke the city, is what he said.
Because
that was one of their strategies, is he was going to come out and make it an untenable situation where he told everyone how he felt about the Bears. Chicago is a place where quarterbacks go to die. I don't want to do it with Shane Waldron there. This is not a place where I can be successful. Chicago dogs are not even that delicious. Chicago-style pizza sucks.
Chicago's too cold. Whatever.
I don't like the Bulls. Whatever. And instead, he's just like, no, I can do it. It's the story you get on date night where the other couple says, yeah, we ended up together, but we didn't plan on it in the first place. And you're just like, oh, geez.
And no mention of, but absolutely love her.
Yeah,
like, I'm so glad I made that decision.
Yeah,
it's just leaving that unsaid.
Well, the one that got away, she's gone, and she married a billionaire, and now we're here together. You're just like, what are you doing, man? Don't tell these stories. Unless, of course, you don't end up in Chicago. If this was... He wanted to go play for the Vikings. Caleb Williams did. If he's in Minnesota and he's talking about a division rival and being like, oh, my gosh, can you imagine how bad it would suck if I'd end up with the Bears? That's wonderful. Vikings fans are going to eat that up. If you're the Vikings quarterback, by all means, tell your dad to get in on it. You get in on it. Have your mom, have your grandma, have your girlfriend, have everybody you know get in on trashing the Bears. If you end up with the Bears, just go to your dad and say, hey, look, we're going to pretend this never happened.
We can talk about it if I'm not the Bears quarterback at some point. How about that?
If the Bears trade me, if they cut me.
Or even if I am for my whole career and I have a Hall of Fame career, it's a fun story looked back in hindsight about how much I didn't think I want to be here, even though it worked out great. Like, just not after your rookie season when you're still employed by that team. It's idiotic.
I try, even though, he wrote the bleep Utah on his fingernails, I try to look at Caleb Williams and just be like, you know what? Really good player and somebody who's from a different generation of athlete. A lot was written about this. A lot of this was talked about. He is like the first Gen Z quarterback that the NFL has had to deal with, basically. The first number one overall pick, like he's the first, like he is the social media generation first test case scenario. Just please, Seth Wickersham. I know this is good content for your book, but have a compass and just be like, hey, this might not be something that we want to put out there while you're with Chicago.
Getting a lot of attention, though. Like,
I mean,
think it's probably going to help him sell books.
You know how many copies of the book you're going to sell because of this? Because people want to, you know how every Packers fan wants to read this? Every Vikings fan, every Lions fan wants to read this. Every buddy in Utah who hates Caleb Williams already wants to go read this part where it's just like, oh, look what an idiot this kid and his dad are. Stop doing this, people. Caleb, you're already famous. You got cameras in your face every minute of the day. Just tell your dad you'll send a crew over and he can do a tell-all interview and then burn the tape. The 15 minutes in the sun, not worth it to alienate the fan base that you are now quarterbacking for.
Creedthoughts.blogspot.com for his dad.
Is that an Office reference that I'm not getting?
Yeah. Oh. Trying to save the world from Creed's thoughts, so you make .html at the end. Not even .com. It's like .com/.html.
What a great character Creed Bratton is. All right. That we went way too long on the hot lunch, which means we will start hour number 2, 15 minutes into hour number 2. That's next on the Sean O'Connell Show, ESPN 700, 92.1 FM.
Walker with the puck. Up the middle for Jarvis. In across the line. Here's Svechnikov. 2 minutes remaining. Svechnikov with tough angle. He scores! The Carolina Hurricanes take the lead with 1:59 seconds remaining as Svechnikov beats Thompson.
Carolina has moved on. That highlight from TNT Sports, Kenny Albert on the call. Carolina will face the winner of Maple Leafs Panthers. Game 6 of Maple Leafs Panthers is tonight at 6. You can listen to it right here, ESPN 792.1 FM, your home of the Stanley Cup playoffs. So Alex Ovechkin's storybook season comes to an end. It would have been really, really incredible for him to win a Stanley Cup and pass up Gretzky on the all-time goals list in the same year, and not in the cards for Ovi. But he does go down, and he's not going to retire, by the way. He's not done. At least I don't think so.
No, I think he's got at least one more year, if not a few more years left. But also kind of poetic justice, Andrei Svechnikov, fellow Russian, is the one who sends probably the greatest Russian hockey player ever, a hot take, home early. Number 1 seed in the East. It was a pretty storybook regular season for the Washington Capitals. No Eastern Conference final for them, though.
James, what is the most impactful variable that you look at when your team's schedule comes out in making your predictions for like your over-under win totals? Hey, is this a year where we could compete for a conference championship? If you're talking about the NFL schedule, which was released this week, this is a team that can be a Super Bowl contender. What is the most impactful variable in football scheduling? I put this poll question up. Placement of bye weeks, those are important, obviously. The location, home or road for your tough games, back-to-back tough games. We see this in college football. You see it, the NFL schedule release. I can't tell you how much joy it was brought to my heart when I saw that weeks 12 through 16 for the Dallas Cowboys are all like really awful matchups for them, because I'm just not a Cowboys guy, right? The Niners have a favorable schedule this year. It's like the league's doing a little bit of a favor to the San Francisco 49ers, trying to restore the dynasty, extend it, see if they can do a favor there. Placement of bye weeks, home or road for tough games, back-to-back tough games. I said the other option. A couple people selected that. 0.7% of the votes coming in.
Any comments for other? Or?
Paul Newman says difficulty of opponents regardless of whether they're home or away. And look, that obviously matters in both college football, where your conferences are so big now, you're not playing every conference opponent every year. It does you big-time favors.
Submission by Paul there.
It does you big-time favors when you're missing out on a matchup with, one or two of the best. And sometimes you just you get lucky with that draw. Sometimes you don't.
Yeah, for me, I think it's the location of your toughest games, especially in college football. Home field advantage still seems to be a really big deal. In pro sports, it's not as big of a deal. At least not anymore. It maybe used to be, but the amount of times, I guess a little bit of an early grievance here, an hour early.
Hey,
the amount of times we still hear how hard it is to win at Lambeau Field and at the Superdome in New Orleans, and yet we saw Aaron Rodgers lose so many home playoff games at Lambeau Field. We saw the Saints with really good teams, still with Drew Brees was still around, lose a bunch of home playoff games almost every year. Those guys both only won one Super Bowl, but yet those are the two toughest places to play in January. Like, I'm not sure in the NFL home field advantage matters near as much as it used to. And those are just two examples. I have a grievance against people who still want to say they're the toughest places to play. It's like, right. Well, then win.
Right.
But college football, like, it's still overwhelmingly tough to play. Even here to win a game at Rice Cycle Stadium. Last year they obviously dropped a bunch due a lot because of injuries and not very good quarterback play. But before last year, Utah hardly ever lost at Rice-Eccles Stadium over like a 6-7 year period.
You know how
Alabama is an unbelievably tough place to play still.
You know how Kyle Whittingham says, like, the COVID year doesn't count, let's just throw it out? I submit a motion where we use last year as the year that Utah gets to throw out.
Yeah.
The COVID
24,
year,
no one counts that.
Yeah, like.
Just start saying that.
No one counts 2024 and have people see if they're, wait, what? Why?
Wait, what happened in 2024?
2024 doesn't count. Just do that. Instead of saying 2020 doesn't count, let's make it that 2024 doesn't count. Can we do that?
Let's just for everybody, not just for Utah football. It just doesn't count.
The NFL schedule release did happen. We've been so busy on the show, we haven't gotten an opportunity to really discuss it. It's not. We already know who's going to play and where they're going to play. The when, I guess, is what matters, and that's where this question came up, because it was like, all right, now that you know the when, are you stacking tough opponents on top of tough opponents? And really, only a few teams have those nightmare stretches. We talked about those, the tough stretch for Utah football in their season. There was a couple teams in the Big 12 last year who just had nightmare schedules, and a couple teams who had the perfect scheduling of bye week coming at the exact right time. There's the weird, like, week 2, week 3 bye weeks. I don't like those. So tell me what the most important variable in scheduling is according to your thought process. As you're trying to predict your favorite team in the NFL or in college football, what their wins and losses look like, what's the most important variable at Real OC Sports? I'm
surprised no one's written in where the trap games are, because it feels like that's everyone's favorite topic in the off season once we know the full schedule. Oh, where's the trap game? Oh, that looks like it's the trap game. Oh, that one might be the trap game.
That's a great point, James. The trap game can be the thing that ruins your season. Because right now, especially with the expanded college football playoff, you can get away with 2 losses. It used to be you could get away with 1, right? And we would always pencil in the loss as like, oh, well, that's, you're playing against Oregon on the road. You're playing against USC on the road, because there was a 100-year span where you weren't winning at the Coliseum. And then you would sometimes ignore the trap game that came the week after, where, Oregon beats you twice. Or, well, you got BYU at home. That's an easy one to win. And then you got Washington on the road the week after that, and it just kind of sneaks up on you. Whatever it was, when Utah was in the Pac-12 and you go all the way back to when they were a WAC team, I'm sure you could find those trap games. So that's a good one, James. James's vote is other trap games.
Where are the trap games?
Okay, I like that.
By the way, BYU fans, you can air a grievance against OC saying your team was easy to beat at Rice-Eccles Stadium in about an hour. If you want, 877-353-0700. Airing of grievances.
Good luck airing that grievance on these airwaves. Stretches of consecutive home and away games coming in from 75-35. Yeah, all right. I like that. That's fair. We also got another hilarious text about a teacher at a woodshop teacher in high school named Mr. Wood.
I think the woodshop teacher in my middle school was Mr. Wood. Or there was a teacher anyway. Maybe not woodshop, but there was a Mr. Wood in my middle school. So that's funny.
Today's not even what you're talking about, but I'm happy that Britain is going to be able to join Puka in Los Angeles.
Oh, yeah.
They could be a fun combination if they figured out little packages for them. Britton Covey to the Rams.
New LA Ram.
We talked about that a week ago or so. Puka Nacua, obviously, with the Rams. Puka was an Orem guy instead of a Timpview guy, though, right?
Yeah.
I don't like that. The Nacuas were a Timpview family.
Oh, so did Samson go to Timpview?
Didn't he?
I'm not sure.
I think that maybe I'm up in the night here. I could be dead wrong, and I'm just – Orem fans are now just like, how dare you take the Nacuas from us? Anyway.
If you want an air grievance about that, Orem Tigers.
Okay.
About an hour from now.
James just wants all the grievances to be aired against me. That's fine. James, in respect to the...
Sorry, it is... Samson did go to Timpview, so you are not up in the night.
Okay, all right.
But Orem Tigers, all Orem Tigers, if you want to air that grievance anyway, do it in about an hour, airing of grievances.
The real question is, where did Kai Nakua go to high school? That was Liberty High School in Henderson, Nevada. So
they were all over the place. No one gets
any credit. All right, let me steer us back onto the road here. In respect to the NFL schedule, the Week 1 release is out. Dallas, Philadelphia to open the season. That's going to be a fun one. Kansas City at Los Angeles. It's technically at Los Angeles Chargers, but that's the one that's going to be played in Sao Paulo, Brazil. The Week 1 slate looks like this, James. Okay, I'm going to ask you a question regarding ticket prices here in a second. Okay, Dallas at Philadelphia. Tampa Bay at Atlanta. Cincinnati at Cleveland. Miami at Indianapolis. Las Vegas at New England. Arizona at New Orleans. Pittsburgh at New York. Jets. New York Giants at Washington Commanders. Carolina at Jacksonville. Tennessee at Denver. San Francisco at Seattle, Detroit at Green Bay, Houston at Los Angeles Rams, Baltimore at Buffalo. And then the Monday night game is the Vikings at the Bears. The most expensive ticket of Week 1 and the cheapest ticket of Week 1. What do you think?
Expensive, I'll guess Packers-Lions.
Incorrect.
Oh, with that Cowboys, Eagles.
Cowboys,
right?
Eagles. You got number 2 though. You're right.
I wasn't counting Cowboys, Eagles, of course.
Packers, Lions. So, the tickets, the get in the door price right now is $315.
Wow.
At Lambeau.
Okay. Tough place to play.
$349 if you want to go to the game in Philadelphia.
Okay. Least expensive.
The least expensive. The most affordable ticket.
Did you say Browns and Bengals are playing?
Cincinnati at Cleveland is not the cheapest ticket.
It is not. Okay.
As of today.
Is it Vegas, New England?
It is not. That is actually pretty expensive. That's $171.
Well, it's the Tom Brady revenge game.
Okay, yeah, sure.
If a part owner can have a revenge game. Yeah, I don't know. I can't think
It's the only one you can get into right now for less than $50. And it is Arizona Cardinals at New Orleans Saints.
Okay, yeah. I should have known that.
The Superdome is a $39 ticket right now.
Tough place to play though. Not as much when you don't have Drew Brees at quarterback.
So the ticket prices, again, these are the bare minimum. The get in the door ticket price. I heard Scott Mitchell talking, I think it was yesterday on his show, about fans being priced out of the NFL experience or whatever, and we've talked about ticket prices here in Utah. The Jazz, even with their bad lottery luck, pass on their bad lottery luck for more expensive season tickets and single-game tickets for the Utah Jazz. Those things will come down. I promise you'll be able to get Jazz tickets next year for $5 or less. Now, they'll be way up in the top, but you'll be able to get in the building, all right? NFL Week 1 tickets range from $39 minimum to $349 minimum for one seat. The worst seat at Lincoln Financial Field is going to cost you $350.
Maybe you can buy Caleb Williams' seat on the bench though. Since now that he's said he doesn't want to be there, maybe he's on his way out. I don't know. For the Monday night game.
Oh, beautiful. That's Monday night game you can get into for $212. It's a bargain, baby. All right, we got to check in on the PGA Championship. Paul Pugmire has been kind enough to lend us his expertise. He'll do it again in 3 minutes on the Sean O'Connell Show. ESPN 700, 92.1 FM. Time to check in on the PGA Championship from Quail Hollow. Update brought to you by Uinta Golf. Get the new Ping Scottsdale putters and bunker wedge at Uinta Golf by Worldwide Golf. Trusted by golfers since 1971. Our next guest, been trusted by me since 1971, even though that was 12 years before I was born. Paul Pugmire, Utah Golf Radio host. Saturday mornings, you can find him right here on ESPN 700 from 8 to 10. Right now, you can find him giving us updates on what's going on with the PGA Championship. Paul, welcome. How are you?
Doing great. Thanks for having me on.
What is the golf scene in Venezuela like?
Okay, that is such a good question because Johnny Vegas is the only Venezuelan player ever to make it to the PGA Tour. They don't have a deep golf scene. They don't have a deep program for developing players. There's some decent courses there. It's mostly for landed gentry as playgrounds. It kind of plays into all the stereotypes that so many people around the world have worked to change, but in Venezuela it kind of remains the same. But Johnny Vegas is a legit player. He's a 4-time winner on the PGA Tour, and he's kept his card and hung around and been on the tour for a lot of years now. And so it's not a really big surprise to see him doing well today.
Sitting at 10 under right now is Jonathan Vegas. Then you've got Pavone at 6 under, a log jam at 5 under, which is where the leader was when we talked yesterday. And Gerard, who was in that conversation, is still there at 5 under. But, we talked a little bit about the course and the style of play that works. Looks like the update is now Vegas 8 under. 8 under.
He kind of stumbled coming in. Yeah.
Okay, so 8 under here. Sorry, I'm just watching it on my television, and it went from 10 under to 8 under in these last few seconds. So it must have been a bad hole or two. We talked about who's going to play well on this course, how it's going to, what style of golf plays well on this course, and now, day 2, you've got a guy 8 under, giving him a pretty comfortable lead over the pack, the peloton, so to speak. Is surprise for you, or is this his style of golf like we talked about yesterday?
He is first of all, he is a big, strong man, and he totally can move the ball. He has had trouble keeping control of his strength over the years. So Jonathan Vegas has played well when he has been able to control his horsepower. And he won actually back-to-back Canadian Opens a couple years back, and they play the Canadian Open on good golf courses that are demanding and tough. And so to win the Canadian Open, it tells you you're playing good golf. And Johnny Vegas has done that. So he has the ability. The question now is, will he hold on through the rest of the weekend? He just gave back 2 shots on 18. 18 at Quail Hollow is such a great golf hole. So hard. There's so many ways for things to go sideways on you. And they went sideways on him. And so he gave back a couple on 18. So now he's going to go into the weekend. We don't know yet if his lead will hold up by the time the afternoon wave completes its play. But I'd rather be in his position right now than anybody else's.
We're seeing, Rory's had a couple of bad holes. Scheffler's had a couple of bad holes. Schauffele. When you see the best golfers in the world double bogey, or when you see something go awry for these guys, what's the explanation for it besides just, I guess it's one of the most challenging games in the world, but
yeah. Well, it starts with golf is hard, but other than that, generally it means that there was some kind of unforced error. Generally, it means that there was a mental lapse, played the wrong shot, tried to force something rather than taking a bogey. There's a wonderful statistic which is really instructive surrounding double bogeys. When a player makes a double bogey, just one, over the course of 72 holes, only 22% of the time can a winner make a double bogey over the course of 72 holes and win on the PGA Tour.
Whoa.
It's really, really hard to make a double and come back. I mean, and the math on this is simple. It means you've got to go make 2 birdies just to get back to 0. And so double bogeys really can hurt you. And mostly what the really great players do, and normally what Schauffele does better than any, not Schauffele, what Scotty Scheffler does better than anybody, is keep the big numbers off the card. But he struggled with that a little yesterday. But to answer your question more directly, when you see a double bogey, it normally means some mistake, some unforced error, generally a strategic or mental mistake.
So that's such a wild stat about the double bogey.
Yeah.
Now, how does that apply to multiple bogeys? Because that's obviously a different measurement. That's a different happenstance over the course of a tournament. Yeah,
it's a totally different measurement, and it if you're just making bogeys now, but if you get into a funk of making a bunch of bogeys in a row, that'll kill you in a hurry. But when you make a double bogey, you've immediately put a requirement to go make birdies to get back to 0, and you've immediately wasted a hole. If you just make a bogey and then follow it with say a par, you're chewing up holes and doing it in a way that doesn't add to your card. Normally, I want to go back to what I was saying about it's normally an unforced error. Generally, you'll see a double bogey when a player tries to do too much coming out of trouble, let's say the trees. Here's another great statistic. 82% of the time, 82% on the PGA Tour, these are the greatest players on the planet. They're visiting from Krypton. When they hit it in the trees, they make bogey. And that tells us two things. It means most of the time they're not trying to hit a miracle recovery shot or a hero shot. And it means that they're taking their medicine and going back to being in play and then making bogey from the fairway, which is exactly the right thing to do when you're in trouble like that. Stop the bleeding. Don't let things get out of hand. But in this event, and especially on this golf course, and especially as wet as it is, which means as heavy as the rough is, it is going to really test people to keep the ball in play and to not chase a weak shot with a dumb shot. And the people who can resist that temptation, they're going to be the ones at the top of the leaderboard come Sunday.
When a course is wet like this and you know it is going to be heavy rough, how many guys drastically change strategy, maybe play a little bit more conservatively, and like you said yesterday, try to keep it on cut grass at all costs?
Yeah, there are two types of players who really tend to thrive in a situation like this. One is the player who can hit it longer and carry it longer especially. And those players I will generally dial back just a little bit, knowing that they've still got the big length and still can attack the golf course. Players like DeChambeau, who watching him a little bit this morning, he was hitting 3-wood off the tee several times, just trying to make sure he's in play, knowing that he absolutely has the length, but doesn't want to get into the heavy rough. And then the other type of player is the player who's exceptional with the wedge. And there's two that come to mind with that, and I'm going to go back to the Masters. Utah's own Mike Weir and Zach Johnson. They are both Masters champions. They are both exceptional wedge players, and they both won the Masters with their wedges.
Paul Pugmire, my guest here on the Sean O'Connell Show. We're talking PGA Championship. Tony Finau, he's one hole in today. He's one under overall, I think, was the latest update.
Yeah, he shot 70 yesterday, which is solid and a good start. Didn't put him in the mix immediately, but didn't hurt him, and he's just getting underway today.
What do you know about Braxton Watts?
Let's talk about Braxton Watts. I know him pretty well. He'll be on my show tomorrow on Utah Golf Radio. He'll be joining us to talk about his win at the regional championship for the NCAA. Now, this is a bittersweet pill that I'm going to describe here in a minute. The Utes had a great team this year and a great season, but they were at the regionals and they came up one shot short from moving on to the national championship. It's so heartbreaking for this really good team. However, Braxton Watts won the individual title, and by winning the individual title, he will be going to nationals individually.
So next week he's competing for an NCAA national championship.
Yes, sir.
Pretty awesome.
It is way awesome. It is so cool. And Braxton is such a good guy, and holy cow, he's a good player. He can go stupid low like nobody's business.
Where's that national championship being played, Paul?
It'll be at La Costa in Carlsbad, California.
Okay. What do you know about that course? Does it match up with Braxton's style at all?
It does. Braxton is a long player. He plays the ball really high, and those are two characteristics that do well at La Costa. La Costa used to be a PGA Tour stop, hasn't been for 10, 12 years now, but there's a lot of tour players who have a lot of experience with La Costa, and it's been on TV a lot. The and the NCAA championships tend to go in 3 and 4 year cycles, and so the NCAA nationals were at La Costa last year as well. And so we were down there with the radio show last year following the Utes and the Cougs. And this year the Cougs are making it. The Cougs won their regional. They're going to the nationals as a team, but Braxton will be there as an individual. And I'll be down there watching them as well and cheering for them and bringing you the nationals on Utah Golf Radio.
Has NIL made a big splash in college golf? Because, there's big time brands with big time money. And I imagine these guys could at least get, the golf brands giving them some love these days.
Yes, and there still are boosters. There are boosters who care about every team, but there certainly are boosters who care about golf teams, and they tend to hang out at country clubs and tend to have some means that they can try to tip the scales with. So the answer to your question is yes, absolutely. Golf is not immune from the same trends that are showing up in football and basketball. And there is free agency. We call it the portal, and players will move around, and there will be offers made and offers accepted. It'll come after the national finals, of course, but we're going to wait and see what happens with that.
Paul, it's always great catching up with you and getting your insight. Enjoy the rest of the Open, and we'll be tuning in for Braxton Watts on Utah Golf Radio tomorrow morning. You can hear that right here on ESPN 700 and 92.1 FM.
Cool. Thank you, OC.
Paul Pugmire. Make sure you do tune in 8 to 10. Braxton Watts, a Ute, competing for the national championship in Carlsbad, California next week. PGA Championship leaderboard update is brought to you by Uinta Golf. Get the new Ping Scottsdale putters and bunker wedge at Uinta Golf by Worldwide Golf. Trusted by golfers since 1971. All right, we'll do a quick short one next. I'm going to ask James for some money. I'll tell you why in 3 minutes. It's the Sean O'Connell Show on ESPN 700 and 92.1 FM. James Peterson, let me borrow $85 million real quick.
I have that to lend you or anyone. I do.
Of course you do.
I'm just selfish and won't.
Wait. You won't?
Well, okay, tell me what you need it for, and then maybe I'll consider it.
So the York family is selling off some percentages, minority stakes of the San Francisco 49ers.
Oh.
It's my favorite team in all of pro sports, in any sport. It's my favorite team. And I want to own a small portion of the San Francisco 49ers. How much do you think $85 million would get me? What kind of a chunk am I getting of the San Francisco 49ers for $85 million?
Less than 1%?
It is 1%.
1%.
Which, for those math whizzes out there, means that the sale that's going to be debated and most likely ratified at next week's owner meetings gives the San Francisco 49ers as a franchise an $8.5 billion valuation.
Man, I was gonna guess that I'm not smart enough to just know that 85 million is 1% of that just off the top of my head, but just knowing that no teams sold for or been valued at over 10 million yet. I was gonna guess that must be 8.5. Wow.
So the
billion, I should say.
It's absolutely insane. So there's 3 Bay Area families who have approached the Yorks and are apparently they've been approved by the family to buy a 6.2% stake total. These 3 different families, the Khosla, Dieter, and Griffith families, they're all in private equity, basically. They're all already fabulously wealthy and want to have a piece of the San Francisco 49ers.
Yeah, because that's what, when you're fabulously wealthy, that's the next thing you want is the fame that comes with being an owner of a sports team.
100%.
Absolutely, especially in America.
I mean, look, when I hit it big, James, and I'm a billionaire, the first thing I am buying, well, second thing I'm buying. The first thing I'm buying is as much land as possible in Hawaii. The second thing I'm buying is a piece of a sports team or a majority stake, more likely, in a sports team. That's what I would want. That's like the thing. If I was in that billionaires club, I'd be like, give me some of that. Now, the problem is these days, you have to not just be a billionaire. You have to be a multi-billionaire if you want to be a majority owner of a sports team.
Yep.
Because a single NFL team is now worth $8.5 billion. Now, the 49ers are a very valuable team, obviously, because
the Cowboys haven't even had a valuation yet because there's been no threat of Jerry Jones selling any part of the team, and that's going to be in the double-digit billions.
That's 11 or 12 billion. If the 49ers are 8.5, then the Cowboys are minimum 10. Minimum 10.
Yeah. They're going to be the first, if and when Jerry Jones ever sells the team, they'll be the first team sold for over $10 billion.
Can you imagine being, let's see, who's getting the 1% stake? Can you imagine being the
James Peterson.
James Peterson. The Dieter family.
The Dieter, yeah.
Oh, sorry.
Too.
Sorry, the Griffith family.
Yeah,
imagine
them too.
being the Griffith family, and you call up the Yorks, you're just like, hey, please sell us a piece of the San Francisco 49ers. And they're just like, all right, we'll sell it to you. We'll sell you 1%. You're just like, okay, I'll take 1%. I'm just grateful to have any stake in the San Francisco 49ers.
So I come with season tickets?
And they're just like,
that
okay,
1%?
How much is that 1% going to cost me? That's like $20 million probably. He's like, no, that's $85 million for a 1% stake. You have no decision-making power at all. You get invited to the Zoom meetings, but you have to remain on mute for $85 million.
We take the mute and unmute controls from you on every Zoom meeting.
The Dieter family is getting 2.1% of the San Francisco 49ers. The Khosla family is getting 3.1% of the San Francisco 49ers. So they're selling off 6.2%, the York family. Just imagine this. You own something that is so valuable that you meet with the family and you're just like, all right, Let's see. Who needs like a new yacht? Who's looking for a new ski chalet?
We're
in Park City?
we're just a titch house poor right now. So let's get some liquidity here.
Yeah, just like who needs a little cash? Who wants some cash? And like a few people around the family table raise their hand, just like, you know what? I wrecked my sailboat. All right, okay. How much you need for a new sailboat? I need $10 million for a new sailboat. Okay. The kind of like, ne'er-do-well nephew raises his hand, just like, well, I've wanted to go on a round-the-world cruise. All right. We'll get a little
in 80 days.
Well, we'll do a little of that. Imagine you have an asset that is so valuable as a family or as an individual that you can sell off a tiny, tiny chunk of it, a chunk that does not compromise your ability to make decisions, determine the future of this thing at all.
And still be known as the owner of the team.
You're still the owner of the team.
It is no bearing on any of that.
Do you want me to give you the math on what 6.2% of $88.5 billion is?
Yeah, let's hear it.
$527 million is coming to the York family.
The York family might have bought the 49ers for something around that price. I don't know how long they've owned it, but
I think it was less.
I think you're
absolutely right.
Like 25 years ago, it cost hundreds of millions of dollars to own the most expensive sports teams. Now it's in the billions.
Let's see here. No, that can't be true. This can't be true. The DeBartolo family, which is Denise DeBartolo, bought the San Francisco 49ers in 1977. I'm going to give you another crack at the purchase price in 1977 to the San Francisco 49ers.
$5 million.
$13 million.
Oh, my gosh.
So
that's not
the DeBartolo family.
It's crazy.
Denise DeBartolo married into the York family.
Oh, so that's how it.
So
she's now inherited the company, and so it's the York family's company. Okay.
Edward DeBartolo Sr. bought it for $13 million, passed it on to his son, Ed DeBartolo, who really oversaw the glory days of the San Francisco 49ers, who, by the way, in that time, through the 80s and 90s, they were known as like some of the best owners in all of sports.
Yeah.
They were like, very family oriented, making sure their people were well taken care of. Their players all seemed to be pretty happy.
The gold standard, if you will.
So they currently own 97% of the San Francisco 49ers. They're going to sell off a 6.2% stake, and they're going to pocket $527 million.
And still own over 90%. Wow. How come I never bought an NFL team? How come my parents never bought an NFL team, OC? Like, that sounds like a great
what
sounds like a great life.
Okay, if you're a billionaire out there listening, if you're Ryan Smith, okay, we've got like a dozen of them in Utah or whatever. If you're listening right now, is there anything else in the American economy that has had this appreciation as an asset? You bought a franchise. What is this? 48 years ago?
Yeah, almost 50 years ago.
For $13 million, it is now worth $8.5 billion.
It's bananas.
The ROI on that thing, like, what else could be that high? This is, I guess, if you bought Bitcoins for like $1 a piece, you're probably looking at something like this. Wow. So, final answer is maybe on the if I can borrow $85 million to buy 1% of the San Francisco 49ers.
How about I just use it, buy a stake, and then I'll let you be in the room for a Zoom meeting I can't talk on.
Here's the thing. I know two people personally, James. I'm bragging a little bit. I know two people personally who have somewhere in the neighborhood of this kind of money.
I know more than two people personally.
I'm going to go make fun of them.
I don't have that kind of money, but I do know more than 2 people.
I'm going to go mercilessly berate those 2 super wealthy people I know until they purchase 1% of a sports franchise.
And they let you go to any game you want.
Yeah, just like, I mean, I just want to know somebody. I just want to know an owner. I don't even need to be the owner. I just want to know the owner.
All right, well, I will let you know once I purchase a stake, and then you can know me.
All right.
How about that?
Tony Jones is going to join us next. It's the Sean O'Connell Show, ESPN 700, 92.1 FM.
.4:10 to go, fourth quarter in Game 6. Here's Strother for 3. Buries it right in front of the Denver bench. Having his best playoff game of his young career and trying to help Denver force Game 7.
The lights aren't too bright for him. He's shooting his shot tonight. It's going in consistently.
Julian Strawther. That's the name you thought you'd be talking about. Late three-pointer to help put the game away. Game 6 win for the Nuggets to force a Game 7. That sound courtesy of ESPN Radio. He ended up with 15 points off the bench for the Nuggets, all in the second half. Sunday afternoon, Oklahoma City will host Game 7. The Thunder are a favorite. Joining us to talk NBA playoffs, friend of the program, Nuggets insider, Jazz insider, NBA insider, Tony Jones. Tony, welcome back. How are you?
What's up, brother? How you doing?
Doing all right, man. I'm glad. I was really happy to see Denver force Game 7 because, these 4-1 victories, we're getting them in the Stanley Cup playoffs. We're getting them in the NBA playoffs. I don't like the gentleman's sweep. I want it to be a little bit more competitive, so I'm glad we're headed to a Game 7 in this series. As I said, Oklahoma City is the favorite here. Can the Nuggets pull this one off in, I guess, what would technically be an upset?
Yeah, it would definitely be an upset because, Oklahoma City's the deeper team. They have more guys. They're more rested. Denver's been running on fumes. They played 9 games in 17 days. The travel back and forth, they've been, it's been a real gauntlet for the Nuggets. And, the funny thing was, when they won last night, David Adelman, their interim head coach, said, the guys were, more excited about having a day off and 2 days off between Game 7 than, they were that they got to go to a Game 7, go play a Game 7 itself. But, all of that being said, Nikola Jokic has been the best player of the series. And, that's mitigated things some. And I think that, Jamal Murray has clearly been the third best player of the series. So, even though Oklahoma City has had the better team, Denver's had 2 of the best 3 players in the series. And that's one of the reasons why, we're going to a Game 7 and you see a 3-3 tie because, Jokic just kind of figured Oklahoma City out. He's been, really, really terrific in the last 3 games. And, Jamal Murray's kind of come along for the ride, so that, the equation for Denver has been a little bit different. They just kind of need one guy to step up. And last night, that guy was Julian Strawther.
When we see this happen in playoff basketball, I mean, now the Celtics have had one of these performances from a bench guy, from and also ran from a name that is not exactly a household name. You got that from Strawther, as you just mentioned. When it happens in playoff basketball and these guys have that moment, how can it translate to the next game for the team, to another guy maybe? It's probably not going to be Julian Strawther again, I don't think. But when you get a big contribution from a bench player, sometimes a surprise contribution, how can you ride that into the next game and try to make it happen another time?
Well, I mean, I think the last 2 games have been decided by random role players. Jokic has been terrific. He's shown up. Shai Gilgeous-Alexander has been absolutely terrific. He's shown up. So it's gone, this series has been so even that it's been won on the margins. So the example is Game 5, Jokic is, transcended, he's had one of the better playoff games that I've ever seen. But, Oklahoma City wins that game because Lou Dort, randomly gets hot. And he hits 3 consecutive 3-pointers in the middle of the fourth quarter. It gets Oklahoma City right back in the game, and they're able to overcome a deficit in the fourth quarter, and they're able to win the game. In Game 6, it was Julian Strawther randomly getting hot. He scores 15 points in 19 minutes. He scores all 15 of those points in the last 14 minutes of the game. So he didn't score a point until the clock was inside of 2 minutes left in the third quarter. And he tilted that game. So, who's going to tilt? What's going to tilt Game 7? What role player is going to step up and make shots, because this, as much as the Stars have been really good, and this MVP battle between Jokic and Gilgeous-Alexander has been absolutely exceptional. This series has been won on the margins. So, whether is it going to be Lou Dort? Is it going to be Cason Wallace? Is it going to be Christian Brown? Is it going to be Julian Strawther? Is it going to be gasp Russell Westbrook? Is who is it going to be? That's going to tilt Game 7.
How concerned should Denver be about the hamstring for Aaron Gordon?
Very, very, because you never know how hamstrings are going to react. They are soft tissue injuries. And, as you know, because you were a football player, anything soft tissue, that's a problem. I think the 2 days between will help. Gordon was, in good spirits in the locker room last night, but it's definitely difficult to have to leave a game with a hamstring injury. And I can tell you like this: if Denver does not have Aaron Gordon, or if Aaron Gordon is in any way compromised, that is a massive swing in the momentum towards Oklahoma City.
Tony Jones is our guest here on ESPN 792 on FM. We're talking NBA playoffs on the Sean O'Connell Show. Tonight, you got a big one at the Garden. This is the biggest game at the Garden since blank.
It is the biggest game at the Garden in at least 25 years. Wow. It's a chance to go to the conference finals, have the Celtics at home without Jason Tatum at Madison Square Garden. Can't go back to TD Garden for Game 7. This is 1,000% the biggest game in the Garden since 1999. And this is the biggest game for the Knicks anywhere since 1999. And I can tell you, I am very, very nervous.
When you take the journalist hat off and you watch these games a little bit more as a fan, does it change the way that you evaluate whether? I mean, look, the Celtics are without Jason Tatum. This is very much a should win for the Knicks, at least, right?
I mean, yeah, but do you know my franchise? Do you know what we've
familiar.
been able to do? Do you know what we've been able to do in the past in terms of snatching defeat out of the jaws of victory?
I've seen it many times. Yes.
To me, like them not having Jason Tatum, that it even makes me more nervous, because the most Knicks thing ever would be us blowing this 3-1 lead, blowing Game 6, having to go back to Game 7, and losing the series. That's the most Knicks thing ever. Spike Lee, do whatever you can. Stephon Marbury, get everybody down there, and the Garden's going to be loud. We absolutely have to close this series tonight. Listen, and the Celtics are capable of winning this game. That's still a really good team without Jason Tatum. So it's definitely not a slam dunk. It's definitely not something that we should be taking for granted, and we should be going out there and ready to play our best game of the season.
Okay, so let's assume that this game is as competitive as it can be. You get a little bit of what we're seeing in that other series, in the Western Conference series, and the star players kind of wash each other out. If this one has to be won in the margins, who do the margins favor?
The margins honestly probably favor Boston because they have more players on the margins. We basically have like 6 or 7 players. Like we have our starting 5. We have Mitchell Robinson coming off the bench, and we have Deuce McBride coming off the bench. That's basically our 7. But our starting 5 is pretty star-studded. So those are all main guys. You look at Boston, Is Derek White and is Peyton Pritchard coming off the bench. Like Luke Cornett, came out of nowhere to basically look like prime Dikembe Mutombo. Rest in peace to Dikembe. On the other night, so they have a lot of guys that they can, run out and steal minutes from, and get into the system, and play that system. And we have our core 7, our core 6, or core 7. So, it's going to be really interesting to see how that balances itself out.
I asked this question on the show yesterday. Curious your thoughts. Timberwolves have moved on. They await the winner of Thunder's Nuggets. The Warriors had to do that whole series, had to play that whole series basically without Steph Curry, and he's not getting any younger. Is the dynasty over? Is the window closed in San Francisco? Are the Warriors still a competitor next year?
I don't think the dynasty is closed for them. I don't think it's closed on LeBron James and Lakers. I think if this playoff has said anything, it points to the parity in the Western Conference. We know that Oklahoma City ran away with the West in the regular season, but the playoffs have been very, very even. You had a Game 7 with Golden State and Houston. You had a Game 7 with Denver and the Clippers. Now you have a Game 7 with Denver and Oklahoma City. It's been, if anything, Minnesota's been the team that's kind of run through the West. So, if you're the Lakers, if you're the Warriors, you go and you fortify your roster. And, if you're the Clippers, you do the same. And I think there's every reason to believe, for those teams that they're capable of making a run next year. I think the playoffs, more than anything this year, has been about matchups. Who matches up with who, and how those teams are matched up together. It's been interesting because I think Denver and the Thunder have clearly been two of the best 3 teams in the Western Conference. But whoever comes out of that bloodbath on Sunday is going to be facing a really, really rested Minnesota team. And that's going to be really difficult for whoever comes out of Denver and OKC to transition to the next series.
Are the Pacers a real championship contender? I heard you say it a week ago. Do you still feel that way?
Absolutely. I mean, that's why I said it a week ago. I mean, they have, the playoffs are about depth, and, the Pacers are probably the deepest team left in the field. They legitimately have 10 guys that can play playoff basketball. And, the irony is that they don't have, the 5-star guy. They don't have, the top 10 overall player in the world that, the playoffs are typically defined by. But what they do have is they have a bunch of depth. They have that starting 5. You're coming off the bench with Obi Toppin. You're coming off the bench with Thomas Bryant and Benedict Mathurin and TJ McConnell. I mean, that's 9 guys right there. Ben Shepherd, that's 10 guys right there. Jarris Walker, that's 11 guys right there. Like, they have so many guys that they can run in and out of the series. It's amazing. And, they've been able to – they wore down Milwaukee, and they were able to wear down Cleveland as well. I mean, they are as big a threat to win an NBA championship as any team left in the field.
How does the power structure of the NBA change after Giannis ends up somewhere new?
Depends on where he goes. If he stays in the Eastern Conference, I think the league will probably prefer that. But if he goes to San Antonio or Houston and you're just adding to the stacked Western Conference, I mean, it's just going to be, that the West is going to be that much more of a bloodbath next year. So, it's funny that so much of the talent is in the West, but it's so much of the talent is in the West overall on the aggregate, but the Eastern Conference comes into the finals, and like last year, Boston was able to win the championship, and it's because the West is such a gauntlet that whoever actually survives and makes it to the NBA Finals is usually beaten up, bruised, and battered by the time they get there. So, it'll be interesting to see if that holds true again this season.
Will that influence like Giannis's desire to go to any certain place? Because if I'm a free agent or if I'm a player who can kind of engineer my own destination in a trade, I'm probably going to say I have an easier path to a title through the Eastern Conference. Yet a lot of the trade destinations, a lot of the final home predictions we're seeing for somebody like Giannis are Western Conference teams. What am I missing?
Well, I think you're missing that. Like, if you're Milwaukee, you're going to trade Giannis. If you trade Giannis, you're going to trade him to somewhere where you can get the most assets for.
Sure.
And that's probably a team out West, because that's where the talent is. So, San Antonio can trade the number 2 pick, which would probably be Dylan Harper, and, Keldon Johnson and a couple of other first-round picks because they have a bunch of assets. Houston can trade Alan Thompson and its lottery pick this year because they have a bunch of assets. These Western Conference teams, and Oklahoma City can go out and pretty much get whoever they want because they have more assets than anybody in the league. These Western Conference teams have done a terrific job of team building, and the Eastern Conference teams, frankly, haven't. So, I think that's where you're seeing the disparity. I think if you gave Commissioner Adam Silver truth serum, I think he would have wanted Cooper Flagg to go to an Eastern Conference team instead of a Western Conference team. But, yeah, it's, the West is going to be just as good, if not better, next year. And the Eastern Conference, you're going to see a pool of about 4 or 5 really good teams, and then it's going to drop off.
Yeah, Adam Silver should have rigged the draft lottery to go east instead of to Dallas in compensation for the Luka trade, but that's a different conversation. Jazz fell to 5 in the perfect Tony Jones world. What happens with pick number 5 for the Utah Jazz?
Well, I mean, one of VJ Ashcombe or Trey Johnson or Ace Bailey will be there for the Jazz to pick. So, I think the Jazz should pick one of those guys, whoever's left. And either one of those 3 are guys who have a star outcome, and that's what the Jazz need. They need somebody on their roster who has a star outcome because right now there's nobody on the roster, not one player on the roster you can look at and say, if this guy hits his ceiling, he's going to be a star or he's going to be a superstar. That player just doesn't exist on Utah's current roster. So they need to draft somebody who – they can look at and say, hey, you know what? Ace Bailey, yeah, his floor is he could probably be out of the league in 5 years, but if he hits the ceiling, he could be, a star or, close to a superstar. With the number 5 pick, it's a top 5 pick. They just need to draft the guy with the best upside and get him on the roster and bet on their player development.
A non-basketball question. As the NFL schedule release came out and the off-season conversations ramp up more and more, are you going to be welcoming the inevitable bandwagon fans to your Commanders bandwagon?
Absolutely not. Stay away. It's been 30 years of misery. Okay? It's been 30 years of misery for me. You do not get to be a Washington Commandos fan, not Commanders, Commandos. You don't get to be a Commandos fan after I haven't seen a Super Bowl since 1993. Okay? Like, I thought that in 2012, RG3 was going to be my savior. And then, Mike Shanahan kept running him through the tackles and up the middle, and he snapped his ACL. Okay? Nobody knows the pain of the Commandos like Tony Jones. So you can't be a Commandos fan unless you've been a Commandos fan ever since we last won a Super Bowl. I don't even care if you haven't been born, you weren't born in 1993. You need to just go back and just say, hey, I wasn't born in 1993, but I was still a Commandos fan.
So Tony will be playing gatekeeper for everyone who's trying to buy merchandise and gear for the first time. And I will refer all potential Commandos fans to you, Tony Jones.
Thank you so much.
All right. Before we let you go, we had a random aside on the show today. We were talking about teachers growing up, teachers that had like weird little catchphrases that they would throw out there. My fourth grade teacher, Mr. Bogenschutz, when you said almost, I almost got it done. I almost got it right. He would inevitably every single time say almost only counts in hand grenades and horseshoes. That catchphrase came from Mr. Bogenschutz in my life, and I will forever associate him with that phrase. Do you have any teachers, any phrases that are burned in the Tony Jones mind from childhood?
So all of my teachers hated me, except for Mrs. Edelstein. Rest in peace. I love you, Mrs. Edelstein, and I miss you very much. But Miss Spiliopoulos in fourth grade basically asked my mother if I had ADD, and she told me I'd be dead by the time I was 18.
Whoa. That's not okay to say.
Yeah, that wasn't okay to say. My mom was very upset at Miss Spiliopoulos. But Mrs. Edelstein, who probably went a long way towards turning my life around, had her in 7th and 8th grade. And to tell you how much we love Mrs. Edelstein, those people in that class, my 7th and 8th grade class, we're all still friends to this day.
Wow.
Pretty much. But she used to tell me, son, use your head for more than a hat rack.
That's a good one.
And like, whenever I would do something stupid, she would be like, Tony Jones, use your head for more than a hat rack. And, I just loved her very much. She passed away about 3 or 4 years ago at like the age of 60 or 61 of a brain aneurysm, like essentially dropped dead. But she was, she was almost like a second mother to me. I'm glad that you asked that. This is like an emotional question for me. She, became a friend when I got to adulthood. She was always there for me. And she, she's just somebody that I'm always loved very, very much. So I'm actually glad you asked me that question.
Well,
I could pay her.
I'm glad that you shared that story, and I'm sad to hear that she's gone, but that's a hell of a legacy to leave for anyone. But certainly that's what teachers are supposed to do. And thanks for sharing. And look, ultimately, Tony Jones has used his head for more than just a hat rack. So the advice, it's stuck. Tony, thanks for your time as always. Appreciate you, my friend.
Yes, sir. Appreciate you, my guy.
Tony Jones of The Athletic, NBA insider, and that is exactly what we're looking for with the teacher catchphrases. That's awesome. My older brother's a teacher, and even though he's my older brother and I think he's kind of a goob, like, I think he's a good teacher. I know that that's like the goal for a lot of teachers. You just want people to say things like that, not even to say them, just to believe things like that, to feel things like that about, the impact you had on their life.
Yeah, to know or believe that you could have that kind of impact. And we've had lots of our listeners have shared great ones. We've shared great ones. None of them as emotional as what Tony Jones shared. So we appreciate Tony for bringing that on, and we appreciate Miss Edelstein for helping turn Tony Jones's life around. And we're just really sorry for your loss, Tony.
Yeah, and by the way, whoever that other teacher was, Philippopolis or whatever,
the Greek name teacher, yeah,
that teacher, you suck. Are you
crazy?
Serious? You're gonna be dead by the time. What? You don't say that to kids.
We don't like that catchphrase.
I don't like that one. You are a bad teacher. That person, whoever you are. All right, Live Night Events presents the 2025 Granary Live Concert Series powered by Nightingale College and Murdoch Hyundai, Utah's #1 Hyundai dealer. Outdoor concerts in the heart of downtown Salt Lake's Granary District. You can find out more details at ESPN700sports.com. It's coming up next. It's the airing of grievances. And I have a pretty serious grievance with one of the leading sports publications in the United States of America. It's the Sean O'Connell Show. And the phone lines are open at 877-353-0700. You can tweet us at RealOC Sports. Air your grievances next on Utah's #1 sports talk. All right, we're giving away 18 holes, courtesy of the Utah Festival of Tees, coming up in about 13 minutes. Right now, though, it's time for the airing of grievances. 877-353-0700. Unburden yourself by airing your grievances right here on Utah's #1 sports talk. James will air one or two. I will air one or two. I'm going to start, James, okay? You know, the Sports Illustrated swimsuit issue is still a thing. I don't know if you're aware. I don't know how many people actually get the magazine itself anymore. It's mostly an online publication. I don't even know if you can get the magazine itself. I do know that the Sports Illustrated swimsuit issue, we were subscribers to SI when we were kids, and the Sports Illustrated swimsuit issue would come to the house, and if we were not the ones to get it out of the mailbox, then you can believe that my mom was not going to allow us to look through the Sports Illustrated swimsuit edition, all right? And that's totally fine. But let's just say the Tyra Banks cover that year was important in my formative years, okay?
Can't imagine why, OC.
I have no grievance against the swimsuit issue. I'm not going to get involved with, like, the discussion around any of that stuff. I will say, though, I'm airing a grievance with SI.com because on Tuesday, this past Tuesday, it's right now, it's SI swimsuit time, okay?
Right, yeah.
If you went, and I do this to prepare for the show, every single day,
you look at the swimsuit.
I go to ESPN.com, CBSSports.com, SI.com, KSL.com. I go to UtahUtes.com.
Looking for news.
Looking for news, looking for content, Twitter.com. I'm going everywhere trying to find sports stories, right? And I'm looking for sports stories, James. Now, this used to be a problem on Barstool, by the way. You go to barstoolsports.com, and there would just be a lot of stuff that was like borderline NSFW, right? On their homepage, you'd be like, oh, my gosh, I'm just looking for the funny blogs. Like, you can't have me looking like a creep if anyone sees my screen, right? Well, I went on Tuesday. I pulled it up, SI.com, and not when you clicked on the sub-menu, not on the drop-down. The home page, James, was a bunch of bikinis. And, like, again, I'm a red-blooded American. I've got no problem with that, except I'm also a happily married red-blooded American. And when your laptop is on the kitchen counter and you're going to SI and then somebody, your better half, is walking behind you to, taking care of it. Just like, what are you looking at? I wasn't trying to look at anything. I literally just went to sports. I was looking for sports. And instead they gave me Salma Hayek, she's aging backwards. Which, again, my grievance is not with you, Salma. Congratulations to you and whatever genetic lottery you won or whatever and plastic surgeon
the money
you
have to pay for some of that, yeah.
James, grievance with SI.com specifically because not today, but if you were there on Tuesday, it was happening.
You're getting in trouble with your wife.
You were
getting in trouble at work. If you're
seriously,
just looking for sports stuff,
I was like, man, thankfully no one's behind me here in the studio. I mean, come on.
I'm logged into my work Wi-Fi now. Come on now.
Guys. Anyway, so a mostly comical, but like, hey, what are you doing, man?
Yeah.
And I was like, I swear I'm not. It's just.
Yeah, to be fair to SI for having their front page being dominated by the swimsuit edition when it's coming out, right? It is maybe their biggest deal. Like, especially after they slashed their staff royally. What was that now? 2 years ago. Their sports content is probably taking a back seat to the swimsuit edition. It probably was doing that for a long time anyway. So in fairness to them for that, but yes, growing up, I used to hate the sponsored by ads at the bottom of ESPN.com. Even the sponsored content, And because I'd be like at school looking for sports stuff, and then you scroll down at the bottom of the page, you finish the article, and it's like, whoa, and it's not safe for school there, and it's not even ESPN had the body issue, I think, but it was nothing like Sports Illustrated swimsuit that you can make you think, oh, I could get in trouble for going on ESPN.com.
I don't know. The body issue was even more difficult at some points.
Yeah, I mean
because they were nude.
It showed a lot more skin. That's true.
And look,
but it wasn't. It was like it wasn't just about the sex appeal, the body issue.
Yeah, that's what they said.
That's what they said.
That's what they tried to make you believe.
But that aside, I used to be like, what the heck? I'm at school looking up the Jazz game, and I scroll down to sponsored content. Good thing my teacher's not looking at my screen.
Here's the deal. You just can't sneak attack us with that stuff, Sports Illustrated.
No.
All right? We got jobs now. We got families now. All right?
I'm not a teenager anymore by myself in my room, okay?
Gone are the days when I'm running to the mailbox to get SI swimsuit issue before my mom gets it. Grievance!
My grievance, you guessed it, it's traffic related.
Perfect.
I'm pulling up. I'm driving in this morning, and at multiple stops, and I'm off to the side, so this isn't as bad as it could have been for me, but it still bugged me to see it. So multiple stoplights. I look to my left or to my right, and someone has more than a full car length between them and the white line you're supposed to stop at.
Okay.
I'm not sure that really causes that much of an issue for anybody driving. It just bugs the hell out of me. Like, why are you stopped so short going up to the stoplight here?
So you have a grievance with stopping short, but not the Seinfeld stopping short.
I mean, I'm all for that. But no,
okay.
Don't worry
all
about
right.
that. Speaking of Frank Costanza, we come in with this area of grievances segment, the great Frank Costanza. No, like, I look over there, I'm like, I understand being a cautious driver, but you're like a car and a half could fit between you and when you're supposed to stop. Like,
especially now, because isn't some of the technology that changes the light? Isn't there like
there's some pressure plates in some of the intersections, so that it could. At some intersections, it could cause problems.
Yeah, you're causing problems. Don't stop that short. That's ridiculous.
Also, like and it's not that. Thankfully, it's not too often here in Utah and in Salt Lake City area where we have too bad of traffic jams. But every once in a while, it's like you got a bad traffic jam, and you could fit a couple more cars here. Okay, like let's
come on, people.
You don't need to be that cautious. It just bugs me, and it. To be fair, I only know it's happening when I'm not in the same lane as them, so it doesn't really affect me that much. I just hate to see it.
Fair. James is always down for a good traffic-related grievance.
There was another, and also I'm not going to recycle this grievance, but there's a new Hyundai Kona, and maybe not brand new, but new to the driver.
Okay.
They had the temporary license plate on there.
Yeah.
Creeping up on a pedestrian in a crosswalk. Okay.
Don't start again, please.
Just let people cross the street before you start moving.
James, he's okay if you're...
I'm begging you.
He's okay if you're a regular creeper. Just don't be a traffic creeper. All right? Okay, to the text lines we go for the grievances. 4805 says, my grievance is that you lied to us on Twitter. I offered free concessions, free gear, free tickets to Jazz games because we were all coping after the NBA draft lottery. I have a grievance with Adam Silver in the NBA. Show the lottery live, you criminals. All right?
Criminals.
0626. My grievance is with the NBA draft lottery. But hold on, not for the reasons you think.
Holding on.
Yeah, okay. My grievance is with your employer, ESPN 700. Uh-oh. I was working late Monday, so I was looking forward to listening to the NBA draft lottery. They even cut Spence's show an hour short to play the NBA draft lottery. But then we didn't play the NBA draft lottery? Is that true?
No, we did. It was also – it should have kept listening.
Oh.
So let me explain. So the NBA draft lottery was also the pregame show for the Knicks-Celtics game.
Yes.
So
okay.
the first – and they didn't start announcing the picks till about 5:15. So the first 15 minutes was, I believe, Jim Basquell.
Yeah.
Talking about the game that was airing after the draft lottery.
We all tuned in at 5 on television as well, and they weren't. It's not like they were like, okay, it's 5 o'clock. The number one pick goes to.
So
okay, so the grievance is with you, 0626, and your lack of patience. Boom. Reversal on the grievance. We're playing Uno, baby.
Grievance reverse. Reverse.
All right. My grievance is with the NBA for rigging the draft lottery. I stand with you, OC. Yes, conspiracy theories are more fun, James. Thank you, 7516.
I feel like that was an in-your-face to me, too. I appreciate you anyway.
Grievance. Why do people walk in the out sliding doors at the grocery store? I'll walk right through you, Grandma on a Jazzy, just to teach an important lesson.
That sounds like my style of grievance.
Okay.
Something that doesn't matter all that much but bugs you for some reason. Yeah.
So we all know that when you're going to the front of a Smith's, right? The left sliding door is the door that you walk in the store, and the right sliding door, if you're coming from the parking lot, is where you walk out.
And typically it's labeled even in, out, some places.
But there's sensors on both sides of the door, so you can go whatever way you want.
Yeah.
If you're an anarchist, you just don't pay attention to the social contract, and you go in the out, you go out the in.
Is this a shared grievance by you? Or do you say, not that big a deal?
Here's the thing. This is real for me. I don't know how I came up with it. If I'm going during what I would call a pretty regular business hour, I'm going to walk in the correct indoor, right?
Oh, okay.
If I'm going late night, very early morning, where there's, 3 cars in the parking lot.
Yeah, way less people.
I'm going whatever door I want. Okay. And I'm going out whatever door I
think
want.
that's a fair way to do it, OC.
But when you're going out, you're heavily influenced by the location of the cash registers.
Yeah.
So you're always going out that same door for the most part. But I'll go in that outdoor sometimes if it's a late night trip because the shopping baskets are closer to the outdoor than they are the indoor.
It's a good point.
All right.
But yeah, what did I text that in? That really sounds like something I would say. Kindred spirit, me and that texter.
4805, grievance with billboards in Utah County. Stop using soaking and other Gen Z terms for your advertisements, boomers. You don't appeal to the cool kids. Whoa. I have not seen that billboard.
In Utah County?
I have not seen that one. I don't like the reference, and I don't even believe it's real, for the record.
I just made a trip to St. George. Did not notice that on I-15 driving through Utah County. Anyway.
We have the Sean O'Connell Show has a billboard in Utah County.
I promise you we're not.
That's not us. Okay. All right. We'll echo your grievance, I suppose. Yikes.
We also have Cole from Riverton, our guy who we shouted out earlier, who really wants to win golf.
Even though he doesn't even like golf.
Next segment. He has a grievance. His standing grievance is just BYU.
Okay.
Obviously a Ute fan.
Yeah.
We appreciate that here on the home of the Utes. And also against me for having a conscience for not just giving him the prize yesterday.
Yeah,
so we appreciate Cole from Riverton.
Yeah, grievance against James for being ethical. I don't like that. 4611 says, my issues with some BYU fans. Recent poll ranked the top 10 college football coaches. Kyle Whittingham at number 9. Some BYU fans argued Kalani Sitake deserved a spot and took shots at Witt. I respect Kalani. He's a great coach in person, but he hasn't matched Witt's accomplishments until Sitake wins multiple Power 4 championships, has an undefeated season. It's not a serious comparison. Let's be honest. It's not close. That is all. Grievance aired by 4611. Whoa. Spence is coming in hot.
Spence has got a grievance against that, too.
All right. We'll take our last break really quick. We'll come back and we'll do a rapid topical trivia and then turn you over to the drive with Spence Checketts. It's the Sean O'Connell Show on ESPN 700, 92.1 FM. All right, 18 holes of golf at Valley View, part of our Festival of Tees, brought to you by the Utah Golf Association and Mountain America Credit Union. 1% of the San Francisco 49ers is going to cost how much in a sale that will be ratified at owners' meetings next week? 877-353-0700. We talked about it on the show today. A 1% stake in the San Francisco 49ers will cost a Bay Area family who's already agreed with the ownership group, the Yorks, to make the purchase. It's going to cost them how much money? 877-353-0700. Up next is The Drive with Spence Checketts. How are you, sir?
I'm good. So were we comparing Kyle and Kalani on the show today?
No, that was just the top 10 rankings, ESPN, top 10 college football coaches. Kyle Whittingham comes in at 9.
Okay.
Kalani Sitake, not even on the also receiving votes category, which I thought, give him a little bit of love there. But that was picked up probably by Cougar Board, and one of our listeners had to air a grievance against the idea that Kalani should be in the same conversation as Kyle.
Shout out to our friends on Cougar Board on a Friday. Shout out to Cougar Board.
Love Cougar Board.
Have a good weekend, guys. Get off the internet and enjoy yourself. Catchphrases that teachers laid upon you?
Yeah. Mr. Bogenschutz, 4th grade teacher.
Shout out.
Yeah. He had 2 that I will remember forever. When the intercom would open up, Mr. Bogenschutz, could you send Sean O'Connell down to the office? He'd say, "You are in touch with reality," to let them know someone was listening, which we laughed every time.
I like it. In 4th grade, too.
Yeah.
That's highbrow comedy for 4th graders.
Yeah. And then if you ever said almost in his class, I almost did it. I almost got that one right. He'd say almost only counts in hand grenades and horseshoes.
And horseshoes. My grandpa used to say that.
Mr. Bogenschutz is the one who introduced me to that phrase.
The only thing I can think of is the basketball coach in my old high school, my freshman and sophomore year, was also our science teacher, which sucked because it meant I had to do science homework, which I always hated. And he always used to say, if we were getting pushed around or our bigs couldn't get rebounds, he'd say, what do you eat, quiche for breakfast? that was his line. Like, he used it over and what do you eat, quiche for breakfast?
What an insult.
It was pretty clever. He passed away a few years ago. Shout out Don Usher. Great man.
Okay, wow. So, yeah, thanks for sending in your teacher catchphrases. Spence, the San Francisco 49ers are selling 6.2% of the franchise.
Saw that. Are you interested?
I'm very interested. The 1% stake, it's 3 different families. The 1% stake is good for $85 million. It's an $8.5 billion valuation on the San Francisco 49ers right now.
Larry Miller bought the Jazz for $7 million in 1984.
The DeBartolos bought the 49ers in 1977 for $13 million.
Wow.
It's now worth $8.5 billion.
How do we get on this?
Exactly.
I mean, we've learned this week that you have to buy a plane at some point, or your oldest child is going to
she wants me to
find
buy
a new
plane.
father. So we need to get in on some of this stuff.
Yeah, exactly. So $8.5 billion for the San Francisco 49ers. That 6.2% stake, by the way, for the math whizzes, they decided we need a little bit of cash. We're going to sell off a very small minority of our ownership of the San Francisco 49ers, and they are going to get $527 million.
That is wild. Let's make a deal. Whoever gets a plane first, out of you and I, the other one gets to use it from time to time.
What do you mean from time to time? Like once a year, twice a year?
Well, let's figure out the plane first, and then we'll do the arrangements after that.
Okay, fair.
Sounds good.
All right, stay tuned for The Drive with Spence Checketts. Thanks for listening. We'll see you next week. It's the Sean O'Connell Show, ESPN 700, 92.1 FM.